Go inside and run to get something to drink. We'll leave this up on TikTok briefly. But before I run and get something to drink, for those who would like to, or while I go and get something to drink, I hope I took a screenshot of this. Hope I did. If not, we might have to wait even a little longer. Let's see. Okay. If you guys are interested in looking into helping the family out, I got some information on here. I'm a little behind, actually a lot behind, probably several days from when I actually originally got this, but they probably still need some help. So if you'd like to look into helping the family out before we get started, I'll leave this up on the screen, and I'll try to make sure, as we always do, that we put on the shout out. Maybe we'll have time in the in between to get this done, but I'm going to go ahead, run inside real quick, get something. If you're on TikTok, you'll be able to see on the screen for a little bit, and then we'll come back and get started. Alrighty. We got the stuff on the screen for a little bit, so prayerfully those who saw it, we'll try to put it back in at the shout out. But if you'd like to help that family out, we appreciate you doing so. We're gonna get ready to get into today's lesson, message, etc. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Come on in. We appreciate you. Hopefully all is well with everyone. Alrighty. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect, and protect today's message. Aman. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osaye, anakituya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, wagwan, aloha, ciao, habarigani, Akwaba, Madasi, Itese, Jambo, Mibini Kofi, Nidafara Kukatana Nawewe, Boker Tov, Boker Tab, Bakwartav, Grand Rising, Bakwartav, Barakalat Shamihava, Anai Kofi, Kohedet at Servants of Christ, Mashalam Chi. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor of Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate your presence today, as always, and exciting day. I was thinking about trying to go to the beach again, but it is extremely cloudy over here today. So if we went over there and it rains as I'm on the beach, it probably would be kind of crazy rain. And even if I got everything into my bags, it probably still would get damaged. So made a decision. So if it does rain, I can at least just kind of go right back into the house. So hopefully we'll be able to sustain being outside and not have to break everything. Well, it won't even be that quick. It won't be that long. Literally, if I have to, I'll literally be able to break everything down and go right back in. But you know what? And all this being said, you're gonna have to give me a few more seconds. I'm sorry. I brought everything. I'm now we're getting on time. Now I got to get back. I don't know what's going on with my setup the last 2 days. I'm sorry. I got to go downstairs real quick and grab our other device for our podcast and for Facebook. I'm sorry, y'all. All right, last time, and then we'll get right back. But we're going to start on something. We're actually going to read up on something today, so you're not going to have to worry about scripture, getting the scripture up while I'm gone. But if you can, just be ready to do the Bible pledge as soon as we get back. And we're going to talk about something that the Bible discusses, but we're going to talk about it from I don't know if it's a worldly viewpoint if you want to say that, but we're going to talk about it from a viewpoint that is, I'll say interesting to say the least, and something that actually causes a lot of debate in the world. We'll put it like that, and something that has kind of crept into the assemblies of the Most High. As far as what is evil, how evil is evil, can anybody perform evil? Is there any righteousness at all? What is morality? We're going to kind of talk about that today. So hopefully you're ready for that. I apologize. Just let me get downstairs. I got to grab one device, literally, an old school phone, and then bring it up here, and then we can get the podcast going as well. So forgive me. All right, hold on one second. Oh, my greatness. Okay. All right. Whether I need anything else or not, we're just gonna we're gonna have to deal. If we move again, it's only gonna be because of weather. All right. I apologize. Thank y'all for being patient. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and read something together, and thank everybody for being on. Let's say hello, everybody, real quick. How you doing, Beck? How you doing, Into the Deep? How you doing, Minister Stephen, Cultural Prospect, Sister Kimberly, William, Minister Tracy, Minister Jenny, Elwin, Big Bad Wolf, Darius, Joseph, JP, Noel, Deborah, Lady K, how you doing? Miss Q, how you doing? Eccentric, and thank you for the love. If I miss you, giving any kind of love, appreciate you. How you doing? Cole, how you doing? Eccentric Faith, Bruda, Sister Monica, Gentle B Star, Minister Tamara, Remember Me, Raj, Brother Raj, everybody, Linda, hola, hola, mi hermana, ¿cómo está? Savage Gang, Jacob, Michael, Stacy, Ski, and if I missed anybody else, or Sky, if I missed anybody else, please charge up my head, not to my heart if I missed anybody. How you doing, Sister Sabria, Brother Dwayne, Sister Renee? If I missed you guys as well, we appreciate you. All right, so we're gonna read on something today called the banality of evil. The banality of evil should be, hopefully I spelled it right on all the platforms, should be spelled Banality. The banality of evil. How you doing, Sister Joy? Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. Had to check on that. Somebody sitting up there in a situation. I thought we were gonna have to make a hospital visit real quick, but apparently it's not as bad as it looked like from the initial part of the text. I apologize. Looked like we were gonna have to make the hospital visit, and I was like, oh, let me check the details on that. But we're all right. Sorry, y'all. It is what it is. You got to care for people. You got to be ready to go at a moment's notice. And look like we were maybe gonna have to end this, but it looks like everything's all right. Okay. All right. Praise y'all. We're back. Let me get focused in here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to do something real quick. on TikTok. You're just gonna have to deal with it for a second. I'm not going anywhere. You're just gonna have to. I'm gonna have to pull up a picture real quick. A picture of the code I'm using. Or actually, you know what? That's not smart. I swear. Yeah. All right. So we're fine. So I'm sorry about that. I thought we literally were gonna have to stop the live session. Okay, how you doing, Coleman? Sorry. I thought we were gonna have to stop the live session. I was gonna have to go to the hospital. It's crazy. All right. Man, we gonna get this word must be special. This must be a special word today, boy. All this stuff going on. All we trying to do is just get started. Man. Alrighty. So we're going to talk about something called the banality of evil. And the banality of evil. The banality of evil. Now, just to let you know, banality, or banal, or I don't know if it's banal, like pronounced like banana or banal or something, but we'll just go with today the pronunciation banality of evil. How you doing, Brother Charles OG? We have the when we say the banality of evil, banality is just a way of saying it's extremely boring or boredom, but the context will get to you in a little bit. So we're going to do some reading to start off. Before we get started, we'll bring it up on the screen what we're going to read together. But before we get started, let's say our Bible pledge. It goes like this. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahweh. Amen. Amen. Alrighty. So when we talk about the banality of evil, when we're talking about banality really just means boredom, but we're going to learn where it came from, where this phrase came from, and what it means and what dialogue happens, because it's not just only obviously something that even though the world looks at this concept of the banality of evil, we're going to see very soon that this is a conversation that probably many of you have had in some way, shape, or form before, whether it's why does the Most High allow evil, or what causes somebody to be evil, or is there really morality, and what morality should we look at, and what is the standard, and all these different things. So we're going to do some reading on this rising. Yes, we're going to do some reading, praise Yah. And in our reading, we're just going to see what's going on. So I will flip this to where you guys can see it. You won't see me for a little bit on TikTok. You'll be able to see me fine, but just not see what I'm reading. So if you're on another platform, so just kind of bear with us a little bit. But we'll get into this banality of evil and have some conversation regarding it. And what are the effects of it on us as a people, right? So this is from magazine or virtual. Well, I don't know if it's a magazine as well, but you have the Aeon newsletter. And the question that they ask is, what did Hannah Arendt, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct at all, but Hannah Arendt, what did she really mean by the banality of evil? Right? What did she really mean by this thing that we now have called the banality of evil? Yep, you're going to go into some psychology today, fam. We're going to go into some deep discussion today. We're going into some deep waters on the banality of evil. All right. So when it comes to the banality of evil, let's go ahead and do some reading real quick. And forgive me because it's difficult for me to see my screen. Hopefully you guys can see it well, even with all the words and stuff that might be on here. We're going to try to make this work. So I'm going to start. So basically, I'm going to start from the second paragraph down, but you'll see on here clearly, that if you look at the first paragraph, this is dealing with stuff that dealt with the Nazis' final solution. If you are not aware of what that is, basically that's them saying, you know, those who were German at that time, those who were under Hitler specifically, coming up with something to where they could have a system in place to make sure that they got rid of the Jewish people, right? And it wasn't just the Jewish people. That's why the number keeps skyrocketing. It's gone from, maybe it was a million, 1.5 million to 2 million, and now it's 6 million. Now people have been saying we need to hike that up to 10 million because there were many. There were POWs. Obviously, there were black people who had concentration camps just for them. There were English people who had concentration camps just for them. There were people who were writers and wouldn't stop writing that were thrown in these concentration camps or thrown in certain concentration camps just for them. So this thing is a lot bigger, right? But this is dealing with the New Yorker article from 1961, where there was a woman who basically had to run. She was on the run, I think in 1936, from what had happened in her life and, in the lifetime of that, where she had been arrested by special services or by secret services of the, I forget what is it called, the SS, but I don't even know if it'd be the SS or just the Nazi police. But nevertheless, she was captured and put in prison by the secret police. And once she got out, she bolted, realizing that stuff was going to get not going to get better, but was in fact going to get worse. So she bolted, it left out, and made sure that she, was gone and she would be safe. And she lived in France for a little bit as a refugee, and then in the United States of America as a refugee. And she started to study what was going on as far as habitually what was going on, and even as far as the mindset, the system, what was systematically going on to cause a systemic issue that we were starting to see a whole bunch of people at that time, because not just Hitler, but you have Stalin, and then you have all the people that work for Hitler, all the people that work for Stalin. You have what was going on with Mussolini in Italy. You have all these things going on. So she's trying her best to figure out what's going on. So we're going to start at the second paragraph, partially, if I be honest, because the way this thing is set up on TikTok, I can't get rid of a bunch of stuff on my personal thing that doesn't allow me to read the top paragraph, but that kind of explains the introduction of the person who wrote this. Okay, so let's keep on going. So from there, it says Arendt found Eichmann. Now, Eichmann is the person we're focusing on. Eichmann is the one who was in charge of shipping everybody to their doom, to their death, right? So Arendt, the person who we just talked about, the woman we just talked about, found Eichmann, this person who's on trial now for this stuff, an ordinary, rather bland bureaucrat who, in her words, was neither perverted nor sadistic, but terrifyingly normal, right? So she's saying that this person would be somebody you would think you would just see in the street. You wouldn't think twice. You would think a person who's evil has to show evil in certain cartoonish and outlandish ways. But Eichmann is somebody who, when you looked at him and study him, he's very normal. He acted without any motive other than to diligently advance his career in the Nazi bureaucracy. So he was just doing what a whole bunch of people do. You go to work, they say, do this. If you want to get going, even if you know there's some things that are not necessarily righteous, if you want to get to a higher level, you do what you got to do so that you can go ahead and get promoted, right? Eichmann was not an amoral monster, she concluded in her study of the case. Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report of Banality of Evil, written in 1963. Instead, he performed evil deeds without evil intentions, which we'll have a little bit of argument about today, but let's just read. A fact connected to his thoughtlessness, a disengagement from the reality of his evil acts. Eichmann never realized what he was doing due to an inability. Now watch this. This is important. Eichmann, the person she's saying who was not thinking about what's going on, was just basically trying to go through the motions of life. She says that Eichmann, due to his thoughtlessness, there was a disengagement from the reality of his evil acts. Eichmann never realized what he was doing due to an inability to think from the standpoint of somebody else. Lacking this particular cognitive ability, he committed crimes under circumstances that made it well nigh impossible for him to know or to feel what he was doing was wrong. Okay. Arendt dubbed, and I can't really read this. Arendt dubbed the collective characters of Eichmann the banality of evil. He was not inherently evil, but merely shallow and clueless, a joiner. In the words of one contemporary interpreter of Arendt's thesis, he was a man who's drifted who drifted into the Nazi Party in search of purpose and direction. He drifted into the Nazi Party in search of what? In search of purpose or direction, not out of deep ideological belief. In Arendt's telling, Eichmann reminds us of the protagonist in Albert Camus's novel, The Stranger, 1942, who randomly and casually takes a man's life, but then afterwards feels no remorse. There was no particular intention or obvious evil motive. The deed just happened. This wasn't Arendt's first, somewhat superficial impression of Eichmann. Even 10 years after his trial in Israel, she wrote in 1971, I was struck by the manifest shallowness in the doer, i.e. Eichmann, which made it impossible to trace the uncontestable evil of his deeds to any deeper level of roots or motives. The deeds were monstrous, but the doer, at least the very effective one now on trial, was quite ordinary, commonplace, and neither demonic nor monstrous. Now, see, we're getting rid of morality in this, and we're saying, see, he just did this and blah, blah. There's some truth to what she's saying, but there's also some fallacy. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Let's read one more page if we can. The banality of evil thesis was a flashpoint for controversy. To Arendt's critics, it seemed absolutely inexplicable that Eichmann could have played a key role and I'm sorry, once again, this thing is set up weird in here. Sorry, a key role in the Nazi genocide, yet have no evil intentions. Gershom Scholem, excuse me, a fellow philosopher and theologian, wrote to Arendt in 1963 that her banality of evil thesis was merely a slogan that does not impress me, certainly as the product of a profound analysis. Mary McCarthy, a novelist and good friend of Arendt, voiced sheer incomprehension. It seems to me that you are saying that it seems to me that what you are saying is that Eichmann lacks an inherent human quality, the capacity for thought, consciousness, conscience. But then, isn't he a monster simply? The controversy continues to the present day. The philosopher Alan Wolf in Political Evil, What It Is and How to Combat It, that's written in 2011, criticized Arendt for her psychologizing, that is, avoiding the issue of evil as evil by defining it in the limited context of Eichmann's humdrum existence. Wolf argued that Arendt concentrated too much on who Eichmann was rather than what Eichmann did. For Arendt's critics, this focus on Eichmann's insignificant, banal, or boring life seemed to be an absurd digression from his evil deeds. And that's all we'll read for today. Hopefully you guys took screenshots. If not, we'll have them up during the shout out at the end. And I took that down and did flip the camera. All right. But we wanted to kind of read these things. So this is called The Banality of Evil. And how you doing, Auntie Mary? So we're talking about the banality of evil. How you doing, Aaron? And how you doing, Matt Bear, Big Brother Thomas, Bunny Green? If I missed anybody who came in while we were reading, forgive me. How you doing, Warren 723, Jacob, Creative with Key, everybody, appreciate you. All right. So in this stuff, how you doing, Tabitha, as well? So in today, we're going to talk about this banality of evil, or at least this theory or this concept, because even though we would say this is kind of weird, somebody did something evil. And why would we try to say that they're not evil? They're just because they're bored, or because this is just what you're supposed to do. But at the same time, there's layers to this conversation, correct? Right. This is a very layered conversation, because a little bit of both sides are true. How you doing, DP? Right. You said, how can one lack the ability to see another standpoint? Yeah. And so there's some truth to all of this. I would start off by saying, first of all, she came from a place where, first of all, I think she's attacked because the people are saying, and there's other parts of these, like when you read more of her stuff, you'll discover that she definitely says, oh yeah, like I think that he's evil. But at the same time, I don't think us just going, he's evil and that's it, and not talking about a system around him is problematic. And that's why we talk about these systems, or what we call a cosmos. And thank you for the love, appreciate it. What we call a cosmos with a K, right? K-O-S, sorry. Yeah, K-O-S-M-O-S, right? The cosmos is the system of things. So if we have a system of things that is evil, or a system of things that doesn't necessarily point us in a constitutional or moral place, then there is something to be said that if somebody's being raised to go grab that brass ring, if you will, and thank you for the love, and how you doing, Warren, or somebody's being taught, make that money no matter what. We were just talking with some people last night. We were having a great conversation last night and talking about how there are a lot of women who are in certain industries, and not just only in stripping industry, but even places like where you're supposed to be a girl serving in different places, or let's say you're working at a Hooters, or let's say you're working at a casino, or let's say you're working at I don't know, you're working at or you're somebody who is supposedly not a chicken head per se, I'm sorry for the term, but but what is it? I mean, people call these people this, but somebody who's just trying to make that money. Maybe we say gold digger, and I know men can be gold diggers as well. But I'm just saying, is there a system in place that makes people think that these things are what we should chase after? Like there are people who are in these systems, believe it or not, that actually carry some moral values. Believe it or not, right? There are some people who have the ability to say, I know this is what everybody in here wants, or if you offer me a certain amount of this or that or whatever, I'm supposed to do this or become this. But there are a lot of people that say, no, like I'm still not going to do it. But there is a system set up, and we should talk about this system, right? How you doing, Minister Shante? Be safe on your travels. How you doing, Lion King? So I was led to talk about this. I thought we were going to talk about something else, and we'll bring that something else up. The Holy Spirit said we're going to bring it up on Monday. But I wanted to talk about this banality of evil and show you that for a while, and this is even before her, people have kind of talked about stuff like this. It kind of comes from the evolutionary mind, because if you evolved, then your mindset to take out other people is that really nothing more than an evolutionary mindset. Joseph Stalin, who actually took the lives of more people and did more genocide and off more of his own people than than Hitler ever did, and others who have way more than both of them combined. But if you look at like even Joseph Stalin said, when I learned about evolution, because he went to school to be a preacher, and he said, when I went to school to become a preacher and then learned about evolution, I realized that I have the ability, right? I have the right, because I'm better than others, because there's there's levels to it, because we evolve from different animals, and because there's survival of the fittest. If I'm the fittest, then why not take somebody out, right? There's a system in place that puts it in place. And he went to school to preach. And in the school he went to, he learned, that's what he came out with, right? Like there's a system in order. So that even means that those of us who are going to certain schools or getting certain programming or whatever don't realize we're getting certain programs through these skulls or these schools that are not there to make sure that you get the highest intelligence. Not saying nobody who works in that system wants that for you, but that's not what the system is designed. The school system is designed to ensure that you work for the system and fit in. Well, if you're going to fit into a system that is of a heavy carnal mind to the point to where taking the life of somebody now doesn't matter to you, right? And iniquity, what you're shaping by, is what you use to support your thesis or your theories. Then we get into these interesting, to say the least. I mean, we might even call it an evil argument or a wicked argument, but we get into an evil place in the thought process. Said Jim Jones was a preacher as well. Well, yeah, Jim Jones, but even with Jim Jones, once again, Jim Jones, even if we dive deeper, and I'm with you, by the way, I'm just bolstering your point. Even with Jim Jones, we go deeper. If you go deeper into Jim Jones than just, everybody's going to his church and then they drink some Kool-Aid and that was it. Jim Jones was somebody that before he was into preaching, he was actually into getting away from, his whole goal was to get outside of the government, and started getting into stuff like Marxism and saying that communism is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. And he starts having this conversation ideologically there. And then he starts getting into the preaching, gets upset because of the American preacher not believing in some of the things he's talking about outside of the American system. And so he thinks that he's going against the system. Also, too, he's not really educated in the Bible, right? He went to school, but he's not really educated in the Bible, right? So a lot of stuff if you look at some of his sermons from before people started following him as a pastor, and when he really was still being shrugged to the side. He was somebody who was saying a lot of righteous things, righteous intent, but systemically he's going into the wrong type of system. He's trying to use something outside of a kingdom system. So look at, he's saying, like, for example, a lot of people of many different colors, and really probably more people of color, including a lot of black people from America, probably followed Jim Jones than white people did, because Jim Jones would talk about all of us coming together, equal rights, loving one another. What's the problem? Blah, blah. And you would say, yeah, like, that's actually cool. But then look at some of the stuff that goes on to where now you can tell after a little while, it's about him and it's about worshiping him. And then even get to a place. And by the way, then he sets up a system where people can't get out, systematically putting this in place. By the time people left, because they were in the United States was pestering them about their belief system, and they weren't even stopping them, but they were pestering him. He didn't like being pestered or challenged. So since he didn't like being challenged, he left the country and had this whole group of people that left with him and said, we're with you, we're going to follow you. He was their Messiah, he was their Christ. Now we're getting to a place to where it's getting dangerous. Now they go to another country, and they were a lot of them were malnourished or just were ready to go. They didn't believe, but he had a place set up to where it was even difficult to get away, and people had given up their money and stuff. And he had set it up where they were separated. That's why I said, even with like SOC and the land project and all that, we're never going to have it set up to where you can't go anywhere, or where nobody will know where to find you, or where, you're going to be held somewhere against your will at gunpoint. But Jim Jones, that's, you can see he starts doing some of this stuff, right? And even some of these camps and stuff do this. And if I be honest, some of these Christian organizations do stuff like this, right? So you're having this situation where it's building up into something else, but he's using other cultural things, other prisms that are not biblical. And people are coming through this because all they hear is, yeah, you know what, God loves everybody. And why are we, why don't we fight against oppression? And why are you afraid to talk about racism and this and that? But nobody's looking at the system, right? And that's kind of going to what this person's saying. The banality of evil is more so like in the system. If you were living in Jim Jones stuff, there were even little babies. There were children, right, that were there that they found, and children that had, and people who had grown up as children, right? So if you've grown up in that, and that's the standard, that's why not too long ago we talked about a new standard. If you've grown up and that's your standard, that's kind of where you at, right? Like, if you've grown up and that's your standard, why would you think there's anything weird about somebody saying, like he told him, by the way, there's recordings. Like, if you don't have the heart for it, I'm serious. If you don't have the heart for it, do not listen to this stuff. I'm saying this out of love for you. It's really difficult to deal with, right? But they have recordings. You can go on YouTube and listen to Jim Jones sermons and listen to them as they progressively get worse. And you can go on there and you can hear him talking about even starting to introduce the fact that they're going to be poisoned so that they'll get used to it. Like he would set out, he would give them all, pour out a cup. They'd have like some kind of purple Kool-Aid type thing. And they would have it to drink. And then when they would finish drinking it together, it was kind of almost like he was doing a version of communion. And then when they would finish, or the first time they finished it, he said to them all, he go, and you can listen to the audio of this. He says, you've all been poisoned. And you hear everybody freaking out. People are scared, this and that or whatever. And he says, no, you're not poisoned. It's just to test you, to see, right? I wanted to see if you drink it, right? If you would drink it, who would stand the test? Who would freak out? Because who would believe, who would trust me if I said, you're poison or whatever? Who would trust that you could be healed? Who would trust that I would? Who would even think that maybe I wouldn't poison you, right? He was putting all this stuff out. Then he does the same thing a few more times, and this becomes a normal thing. So people start drinking it and going, oh yeah, this is just a test to us. It ain't no big deal. He even started telling them, I'm going to poison you beforehand. People go, okay, cool. This is a faith test. We'll do this, blah, blah. Then you'll start hearing on the sermons and on the recordings, you'll start hearing people saying, well, even if he did or whatever, I'm tired of the system anyways. I'm tired of the oppression, blah, blah. Then it goes from that to then the United States of America, who people have been saying for a long time, deal with this dude. Like, people in the country, they've been saying, I forget what country they were in, forgive me, but the people who are in the country they were in are like, yo, like these people that are caught up and they're doing some wild stuff over here. Like maybe you should deal with them, right? Again, eventually, he says, you know what? Fine, have the United States of America come on, because they kept asking permission to come on. And so, and they got enough pressure from Americans and families who said, hey, Jim Jones is kind of jacking these people up, and they, these people might be, have been drink the Kool-Aid before they drink the Kool-Aid type thing. Yo, go ahead and send them over. So finally, I can't recall what country off the top of my head, but so finally, United States of America sends some people over. They do an interview, right? They do an interview. I don't even know if it was 60 Minutes or something, but they send some people over, some people who were famous in the news at that point. They do this interview, everything, and then people are saying, "Oh no, yeah, we don't mind this, and we don't mind blah blah, and we don't mind being here." But some of the people then actually slip notes to the people who came, and the slip notes on the low, and they're like, "Yo, get us out of here," right? Is Guyana okay? So they're in the Guyana. So now, or Guyana. So now, when they're over there, now it's known. Okay, we need to get these people out. They try to get them out, and in the midst of that, that's when not just the drinking happens, but a lot of people don't know he actually sent some people to off them, right, and to off the people who were traitors and decided to try and leave with the planes. And then when he comes back, that's when they do the Kool-Aid thing. There was a system set up, and this person was getting seen, but we didn't talk about the system. And those who were in it, they eventually got caught up. They were brainwashed by a system, right? I can go deeper and deeper, but maybe now's not the time for us to go into some of the in-depth stuff. But you could, if you had the stomach, once again, I really sincerely mean this. If you're not ready for something like that, don't just listen to it arbitrarily, because it'll mess with your spirit a little bit, right? Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Sister Joy, daughter Joy? So yeah, so you have to get into this position where you realize and recognize what's going on, right? And so when this woman talks about the banality of evil, once again, that's Banality, the banality of evil, dealing with Eichmann, dealing with those who are around, and talking about how, a lot of people are just kind of doing what's necessary to go up in life. While we can't say that they are they are not doing, we definitely can't say they are not doing evil things. But now here comes to a place where you have to have this argument, which is shaped in reality, the reality even of morality. Um, the only reason why people argue that there is that against morality is because people are shaping in evil. So when somebody says, what is morality, what is, we evolved past morality, or I don't want your morality, which is actually a better stance to take, because to be honest, if you don't like what the Most High has to say, then you just don't like what he says is moral. It would be honest. How you doing, Sister Nadine? So that's actually the better way to say it. A lot of people don't want to say it like that because they realize they kind of, then they have to put in place another version of morality, right? They have to put in place. If you're going to take away morality or say, Yahweh, I don't want your morality. I don't want what you say is life-giving. I don't want what you say is perfection. I don't want your version of eternity. Then you have to come up with a whole bunch of stuff to make up something called eternity, or to make up to where you can live in eternity without the one who is eternal, right? Heaven and earth will pass away, but the word of Yah will remain forever. Well, I got to get rid of his word, but I still have to figure out a way to remain forever. Now we have come into these interesting concepts, right? So first things first, even if we deal with Eichmann, you have to deal with who Eichmann served. And by the way, Eichmann, no, there's no way to tell this because we're not in their minds and their brains. But if we be honest, a lot of people who followed Hitler and still follow Hitler, if we be honest. But back then, especially, a lot of people who followed Hitler understood that Hitler might not have been the genius that everybody makes him out to be, but they were very great at something called propaganda. And if Hitler is the face of what's giving you power, then you go ahead and you lift that face up, right? For example, there are a lot of people that when Trump was wilding out and still wilds out, but you know what I'm saying, when it was real bad in 2000, I don't know, 16, 17-ish, and it started picking up steam. There are a lot of people, including like the Joel Osteens of the world and people like and persons such as that. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? That comprehended that Trump is wilding too much. However, Trump is the face of what a lot of people who trust and follow the Joel Osteens, the Joyce Myers, the who's the Florida woman who's the pastor down there, Paula White's. Is it Paula White? Yeah, I think her name is Paula White. Yeah, Paula White. I was hoping I wasn't confusing her with Paula Dean. Yeah, she's Paula White, right? But there's somebody. This is the face. So if you, as much as people don't want to hear this, Joyce Meyer and all the stuff that she preaches a message that's heavy-handed for people of a certain diaspora. Don't laugh at me too much. right, right. But you know, and but you see what I'm saying? Paula White is somebody who speaks to a certain diaspora. We know this because when everything started happening, all of a sudden Paula White went away from her spiritual father. Her spiritual father was T.D. Jakes. Next thing you know, they're trying to have a conversation about, do Black lives actually matter or all lives matter? And she starts saying some stuff where she has to go against her spiritual father, who she loves him and this and that, but she loved him until they got to a certain point. But if she got to choose between, hey, this is who's going to be paying my bills, like this is who I preach to, right? This is the message of hate that I give to them, and this is the message, right? And maybe you say, no, it wasn't the message of hate, but nobody wants to talk about the fact that this is systemic. This is a religion, right? And your religion doesn't stop once you vote. Your religion continues. People live the religions that they vote for, right? If you want to call them that, because we know religion is what you repetitively do as a legion. But let's just say the religiosity, the religious viewpoints that you have. People live by those better than they do their church views or their biblical views, because church, not just as far as cirque or circus, but church as far as the service, most people ain't doing church more than 2 to 3 hours, right? But there's something more powerful than church, right? Unless you realize that cirque or circus, the real church is something you should be looking at all day long. See, sometimes we get so caught up in Roman Catholic Church or Protestantism or Christian nationalism that we forget Christian nationalism means there's a nation that's like this, right? Like when somebody in Russia says Jesus, they don't mean what you meant when you said it, right? Like you might not know that, but there's a system. So when they say Jesus in Russia, they believe in a whole different version, right? If somebody who is a Mormons have a system, right, that they live by. Everybody does, right? But the Mormons have a system that they live by, and so when they talk about Jesus, they don't call him Jesus. They call him the Mormon Jesus. Why? Because in the system that they're in, Joseph Smith is trying to tell them that white people, and forgive me for using that term, but that's what we use in the colonial terms, right? White people were the actual Israelites, and they were the ones that came over and they mixed with Native Americans, which we actually know there's some truth to that, right? So you get some truth, but then they say, well, the white people were the actual Israelites, and the Native Americans were the ones that were married into it. And the Native Americans, they survived, but the Native Americans, they were evil, and they killed off the white people. And so white people really are the Native Americans, and also white people really are the Israelites. And Joseph Smith was the one who had this given unto him. And Joseph Smith was able to get these tablets that these three men who all left Joseph Smith and started their own thing. But, they had these three witnesses, and all the three witnesses actually saw the tablets that Joseph Smith used. And then the Mormon Jesus is there. And anybody who's white was somebody who fought for the Mormon Jesus. Anybody who's black or colored is somebody who was a coward. Anybody who has no body is somebody who fought for the devil. And so when they say Mormon Jesus, you might not recognize that they're not even talking about what you think. So when they sprinkle some Jesus on it for them, they're not talking about what you and I are talking about. It's a different mindset. It's a different thought process. It's a different agenda. And so the propaganda, even if they say, and I've told y'all stories before where people who are of color, black, Asian, etc., who've knocked on my doors and try to have conversation with me about it, they're more upset about when I point these things out to them, and I talk about their Book of Mormon, and I talk about who Joseph Smith was, and I talk about how his own people took his life, and how I talk, they will be more upset about it. You know why? Because for them, they thought they would find identity in this world that says that they're nothing anyways, rather than try to figure out, well, what is it that actually could be untrue about that? Maybe I am chosen. Maybe I am peculiar. Maybe I am righteous. They said, no, I'd rather be around people who are white and delightsome. That's a Mormon revelation, a Mormon realization that white people are white and delightsome. And so they get into a system. And so if you're going to get in there, you say, how could somebody hate their people so much? And there's a lot of people who hate their own with a passion, right? And hate themselves, hate their skin color, hate their hair. Everything about us is ghetto this, ghetto that. And you say, how could somebody hate themselves that much? But it's because they're in a system that they've been raised in and shaped in, and that says they have no intrinsic value. And the less value you raise with, the less value you see. Right? The less value you're raised with, the less value you see. Right? That's just real. Yeah, that's indoctrination. That's just real. Like the less value you're raised with, the less value you'll see. Now, add an extra word, or let's add a couple extra words to that. The less value you're raised with for yourself, the less value you'll see for yourself. Not just even in yourself. The less value you're raised with for yourself, the less value you'll see for yourself. So if I don't see any value for me, then what's the value for me? This is why we have to talk about systems, and we have to create systems, and we have to get back on track with things systemically. Yeah, I see you, Sister Iska. And you're not the only one. And really, even a lot of us, regardless of what you look like, should talk about that, right? And here we go. This is when the conversation gets difficult, I will admittedly say. uh, right, but let's dive into it a little bit. Right, this is not easy to talk about. It's just real talk. The banality of evil. People are not realizing that people are coming into stuff, and this is just what they think they have to do to survive. And if they make some money off of it, then it means they're surviving better than everybody else. What if somebody were to tell you, right? Like, or some of you know this, but I'm just putting this out there. What happens when people begin to actually hip us to the fact that there's a bunch of people who have skin color that they have? It's going to hurt some feelings. It's the truth. It doesn't mean you're any less valuable. It doesn't mean y'all still didn't know. It doesn't mean that he doesn't love you. It doesn't mean you can't get into heaven. It doesn't mean that we don't have a place for you. It doesn't mean that you still can't do great things. It doesn't mean that you can't take back control. I'm just trying to tell you what a lot of people might not notice, but what if for a lot of people, this is going to be a shocking thing to hear. Maybe not shocking as far as you didn't recognize this, but shocking as far as maybe you've ever heard it said this way. We're going to let the Holy Spirit flow. You ready? What if I were to tell you that a bunch of people's color was already was put into place on purpose, right? What if I were to tell you that somebody had a thought already, had pre-thought and organized to ensure that the color that you are would be the color that you are, right? Now, they can't 100% guarantee this, but what if somebody put effort into saying that the people who are of a certain color in the area is because somebody shaped it that way, right? I know this becomes difficult, and somebody gonna tune out of this because he's talking about color. I want you to see this though, because I want you to catch this, because that's evil, right? But we have become so used to the evil that we won't even think about it. There are people who literally are walking around with the color that they have, and when I say people, that means nations. So there are nations, peoples, nations of people, right? Nations of persons, people who walk around, and you think that the color that they have is just something that just randomly happened, or is because of evolution, or because it was too cold. But there's a lot of places on the planet where people are the color that they are, and have the hair that they have, and all this stuff, due to what? They have it due to the fact that somebody did it on purpose. Now, I'm not talking about everybody's parents came together and said, we want to have sex and just have somebody of this color. No. Okay, let's go to Brazil. All right. Yeah, in attempts to destroy bloodlines, or really take over bloodlines, or have certain bloodlines. And let's go to Brazil. All right. Now, Brazil is something called blanqueamento. All right. Blanqueamento, excuse me. Now, what does that mean? That means the whitening. Yeah, we'll go to Australia a little bit too. But let's just go. I just want to show you some stuff, right? So in Australia, people were extremely dark. I'm sorry, in Brazil, people were extremely dark skinned. The natives were extremely dark skinned. We know this because natives made pictures of themselves, right? Put paintings of themselves out there, and we know exactly what they look like. Even people who came over on ships, the original pictures before iconoclasts. And by the way, if you don't know what iconoclastism or who an iconoclast is, that is somebody who is hired to ensure that they change the icon or change what is iconic. So there are people that are hired to lighten the skin color of other people. We know this for a fact. People got in trouble in this in Kemet not too long ago, or what you call Egypt, right? This happens regularly. There are people who have changed what the Ethiopian said they look like over time. There are people who have changed what the Ethiopian Bible, what the people in there were colored to be described like. There are people who have been, we know Cesare Borgia is a result of that, right? Iconoclasm, iconoclast, people who are paid, ICON, it might be O or A here, but ICON Aclasts. I'm pretty close in the spelling. Forgive me if I'm off a letter, but look up an iconoclast and you will discover that yes, people have in fact on purpose changed stuff, but not just only in the drawing of it. Go back to Brazil, blanqueamento, where people were literally paid to come from other countries, and they said, hey, we would like you to come over here and marry black people. These black people, we've already made it to where they don't consider themselves to be much. They're low class in society. They want to try, some of them are trying to get too much. There's too many of them. We need to make sure we have a stay in here. So come in here and mix with them to where you'll have different versions of children and eventually whiten them, get the color out, but you'll have their shape, or you'll have their nose, you'll have this. And so now we can say that this country is ours. That's something on the books. You can read that, right? That's not a made up thing, right? Somebody did that on purpose. So when you go to Brazil and you see the majority of black people live here poor, and then the white people, a lot of them with plastic surgery and stuff too, and a lot of them, they talk about the clacuda with the poor blacks, with the poor negros, but they don't talk about the blanca, and how they are out here, with snorting cocaine and all that. They won't tell you all that. You got to kind of read in between the lines, and it's very dangerous even to visit the certain places where the black people are, at least so you're told. You got to know somebody there, but you can go there and really find yourself out for yourself and talk to people and have great dialogue, and they'll tell you, yeah, we consider ourselves to be black, when you would think like, oh, why would they consider themselves to be black? They're like, we're the same people, we had the same trade. Matter of fact, before the slave trade started, we had African people that already were coming over here back and forth, going over to Mali, ancient Mali, right? So they'll tell you, that this stuff is there, but that was done on purpose. It was done specifically to ensure that there were different versions and to keep up a fight, but to make sure that the fight was between everybody, that people who were the same color or even colored and there were slightly different variations of color would fight with each other, but you would still have more people that were considering themselves to be white, or the standard to be white, or hoping to marry into the white family, right? That's just Brazil. That's only Brazil. Now, Brazil is huge, by the way, one of the biggest countries on the planet. And they did that there, and it shaped the whole country still to this day, where you go and you look on the news. Tell me how many black people you'll see on the news, right? You see all this stuff, even down to the evil stuff, even down to the magazines, the disgusting stuff, the people who are the streetwalkers, all this stuff. Yeah, it happened in Argentina as well. It happened in many places, right? Argentina to in Chile. Now they'll tell you, oh yeah, there's not really any black people in these places, which is not true. But you got to look at what happened, the whitening of it. Look over in Mexico, right across the border. In Mexico right now, in Mexico, where it's called Mexico because they don't have an X sound in Spanish, right? You have a Olmecshi. That's where the Mexico, that's the X sound comes from the original colored people, and a lot of them were African mixed, right, or straight up black, right? But anyways, they will tell they don't tell you that there's more Afro Mexicans, right? Like when we say African Americans, there's no more African Mexicans or Afro Mexicans than there are African Americans, if you want to use those titles, right? There's more of them, right? There's more in America than what is said, but many people won't acknowledge it. But there's more of it. I'm talking about there's more who will acknowledge in Mexico right now, we are Afro Mexican, we are black. And in our mind, we would say, no, that doesn't even make sense. But there's a bunch of them that would tell, yeah, we're black, we're Israelite. A lot of them will tell you we're Seminole because we don't know that a lot of Seminoles went all the way from Florida trying to escape the American regime. John Horse led them. They went down, and then America tried to go into Mexico to try and get them to say, hey, we're not going to let these black people trying to get away from us. And literally, Mexico fought with John Horse. He became a general. And to this day, the Seminoles are really highly regarded in Mexico. Right? My wife is a Seminole. So I love the fact that I'm married into the bloodline of John Horse. But a lot of people don't know this, right? So when you go into this, and Seminole even of itself is so much stuff going on too, right? But there's a lot of stuff where people have lightened it and try to change it and try to tell you and I are not dealing with this stuff. And I'm sorry, today is going to be restricted because apparently people didn't like the fact that we're talking about, the whitening. But you need to know this. So hopefully those who missed this today, you'll be able to go and catch this on catch the recording on YouTube or on Facebook and various places that we have it on the podcast, etc. It's starting to rain a little bit, so just giving you all a heads up. I told you if it does rain, I'm prepared. So I'm actually more prepared if it rains than than I was earlier today. So if it rains and we got to run inside real quick, I apologize if the sound is going down. I had to cover the MacBook up a little bit, but if it starts to rain, we're going to jump inside just to give you guys just to let you guys know. Okay. So if I run inside, literally, I'm right here. So sorry, don't worry about it. So if I run inside real quick, yeah, don't worry about it. I was doing that for an example. Sorry. So so if we do have to run right inside, it sounds like it might pick up and rain. So if it does, literally give me like a minute and a half, and all I got to do is take the electronics, put them right here, and I'll be on the couch, and we'll keep it going. Right. But can you guys hear me all right on YouTube? TikTok, you should be able to hear me. Yeah, you hear it. Can you guys hear me all right on YouTube? Let me know if you can't. Shalom, Elashfa, how you doing? Um, but where were we at? Where were we at? And hopefully the signal is all right. I was having weird issues with the signal today. But can you guys hear me all right? Can somebody let me know on YouTube if you can hear me? Okay. Oh, it's a little muffled? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll try to put it like this. We'll see. Prayerfully it works for you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that should be better. But yeah, if we have to run inside, just know it'll take us a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, so you go from there. Somebody mentioned Australia, same thing. People were paid to come to Australia, marry into the indigenous people, and they wanted to do that to keep indigenous blood and put it in their bloodline so that they could say they had a right to the land. At the same time, though, they wanted to block out the black skin. So when you go over to Australia, that's done on purpose. When you're like, well, this person's indigenous, but then this person doesn't even look indigenous, but they say they're indigenous. And this person, it was done to confuse on purpose, right? Like this was purposefully done. And you must think about this now. So if we're talking about evil, somebody will say, well, hey, does it really matter what color you are, this and that, or whatever? Well, if it didn't matter what color, then why did somebody make it whiter? I'm not saying white is evil now. Anybody who's trying to put that on here, we rebuke that. We speak against that spirit in the name of Yahshua, right? That's not what we're talking about, right? Why is it on purpose? See, I'm trying to tell you, it was purposefully done. Somebody orchestrated this to make it a point to have certain people be in certain colors. Even if you go back, even in Thomas Jefferson, for sure. But even go back before Thomas Jefferson, right? Go back to the letter that they try to act like isn't even something that's real. Go back to the Willie Lynch letter or the Willie Lynch speech that was written down and given to everybody. That was in spoken on December 25th, Christmas Day. This is religious. December 25th, from a pulpit in church. Willie Lynch is brought in 1712 over from his modest plantation to be able to help people or help the slave owners with these slaves who are not just bowing down, or they're still doing things that show that drapetomania from the 1600s is still a real issue. And they're taking the lives of their slaves and losing money. They're having to spend money for other slaves, and they're not able to breed fast enough. They don't even have their breeding camps together yet and everything. And so he's brought there to help. He's like the LeBron James or the Michael Jordan, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whatever you want to call him, of slavery, brought there on purpose to ensure. So Willie Lynch is brought over to ensure that he lightens the skin color and has it to where now, well, part of what he says is you might need to make sure that you realize there's different color groups for different jobs. So what does that mean? That means that I might want some of the dark skinned people, they're going to be like the Mandingos and stuff. They need to fight against each other in the ring, in the pen, right? But the light skinned people, we can have certain colors, right? And we can have certain colors that do this, certain colors that work with paperwork, certain colors that are house Negroes, certain colors that are this. And we'll put them in positions and they'll fight amongst each other instead of fighting against us. And we'll even have the overseers and our family members who might see themselves as still not being on our level because we mistreat them as well. What we will do with these overseers is we'll have them live in the same exact conditions. Matter of fact, sometimes worse than the slaves do, especially the house Negroes live better than the overseers. But we'll tell the overseers, you can beat the crap out of the slaves and literally beat the white meat or beat the slave to the white meat shows. Because scientifically speaking, that if you beat the slave to the white meat show, it means you're beating them until their righteousness or their piety or their whiteness shows. right? Which is something that people still repeat today. I'm gonna beat you to the white meat. You don't even know where that comes from. Or if somebody wants to, I was talking with my wife about this, I think last night, if somebody wants to escape slavery, right? If somebody wants to escape prison, they would call that drapetomania. That's crazy, isn't it? Isn't it crazy? Isn't it bad? Doesn't it make you a bad person if you want to escape prison? You better pay your debt to society like everybody else, right? But even if the person deserves prison time, are they not being treated like an animal? And some people think it's bad to be treated like an animal. Some people can't take it. Somebody says, well, you don't do the crime, but you can't do the time. Sure. Well, why does the time have to be put them in a cage? And how is that going to help them to be able to be reacclimated back into society? Unless the goal is not reacclimation back into society, it seems like the goal is more so make more slaves, have these people used to being slaves. If we do put them out there, who cares if a couple of people are sacrificed? If it means that once this person gets in trouble again, we'll bring them right back in. And we just have a revolving door. Yeah, some animals get treated better. Some of you who can't stand your animals don't put your animals in solitary confinement where you don't even speak to people for months. Where you use the bathroom inside the cell. Where they feed you when they feel like it. But because we've been fed a load of, that the system is fair or things like that. So when somebody performs evil, we're talking about the banality of evil today. Even when somebody's in prison, that's part of the banality. That's part of the boredom. That's part of the go along to get along. There's a lot of things that are happening due to the fact that we have allowed it to happen. There's a lot of people going through a lot of issues that they shouldn't be going through. You say, yeah, if it didn't matter, what a great investment to hide it. Exactly, that too, right? Because in all your stuff about George Washington, nobody ever says Virginia slave owner. And all your stuff about Thomas Jefferson, nobody ever says Virginia slave owner. And all the stuff that they talk about with Monroe, they never say Virginia slave owner. And all the stuff with Madison, nobody says Virginia slave owner. But all the stuff they say about Andrew Jackson, nobody says Tennessee slave owner. And by the way, all of these people, they off natives for fun. For fun, right? Theodore Roosevelt, Mount Rushmore, all the people on Mount Rushmore are people who are some of the worst. Native Americans don't call Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, or Teddy Roosevelt presidents. They call them town destroyers. If you ever hear a Native American talk about a town destroyer, that's what they're saying. They're saying what you call president. They're saying they destroy our towns. Right? Teddy Roosevelt is quoted. Now, forgive me, I'm not going to quote it exactly. Look up the quote for yourself. But Teddy Roosevelt, basically, you can find the quote that's going to be very similar to what I'm about to say because I'm not quoting it. But Teddy Roosevelt basically was asked, Teddy Roosevelt basically said, if there were 10 Native Americans, and if I knew that nine had been offed, and somehow, some way, I turned my back and I didn't see that the 10th out of the 10 was taken out, he said it wouldn't be a problem for him. That's what he thought about Native Americans. Same Teddy Roosevelt, who had a system in place to where Rudyard Kipling, the one who wrote the Jungle Book, writes a letter and starts writing poetry to the United States of America, when he recognizes very quickly that, oh yeah, the people in the United States of America, they're about to become the next great white hope. They're about to become the next great white, part of the beast. You're right, using these terms. I'm not saying all white people. I'm just saying that's what their belief was, right? And manifest destiny and white man's burden and stuff like that. So he says, okay, since that's what's about to happen, he starts telling them, you guys got to make sure that you keep this stuff up. And also, too, then he writes a poem. The poem is terrible, right? And even Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt says, yeah, this poem is crazy. It's disgusting. It doesn't even make sense. But he says, however, it benefits us. It gets the point across as far as we want people to know regarding, white power. So he puts it out there for people. So these are some of the things, that are being done daily, are being done all the time, and we don't think twice about it. We don't look at it. We don't say anything. But these things have happened. We can continue to go. I mean, you can talk about Jamaica and how you have the Indian, the Chinese, and the maroon, which is the native black, also the imported black, if you will. right? And then you have other people that are white and all this stuff, whatever. This is because a lot of people were enslaved, or some people were forced into indentured servitude, which you would say is slavery. And you have a lot of stuff to where now all these people can't stand each other, but they're on the same island. Right? And people are still doing this to each other today. And there's still a lot of Jamaicans over there skin lightening and skin whitening and thinking that it's better and stuff. This stuff came from somewhere. Some people who are over there and they too white. And so now black people can't stand him. You know, Bob Marley was ostracized because he was too white. You would look, a lot of us would look at Bob Marley and say, Bob Marley doesn't like, let's say, look white, but his father was white, his mother was black, and he wasn't as dark as the other children. This stuff is done on purpose. See, Bob Marley had to have an extremely special message and a special gift, because if he didn't, he wouldn't even been heard, because a lot of people looked at him and just was like, oh, he's just one of them light-skinned people. He's, you know how those light-skinned people act. This is not something new, right? But we would just go, oh, this wasn't done on purpose. This is not evil or whatever. But once again, we're talking about what the banality of evil. People go along to get along, but we've gone along with it so long, we won't even call that evil. But somebody on purpose did this. This was a tactic to make sure that slaves on a plantation never came together. And I told you, even the overseer, which are white men who were supposed to beat everybody, like literally beat everybody and keep everybody in submission, and they were supposed to make sure that whatever the master said, they worked under the master too. They were poorer than the slaves, but they thought because they were white, they were richer. So they were in reverse of us, because we thought we were poor, but really we are rich. They thought they were rich, but really they were poor. This is why Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to him when he was in prison one time. He was being in prison, and there were these two white guys that were in there with him to watch over him, and they thought they were all that because they were white. And he starts talking to them. They had this dialogue, and King tells them, he says, man, you know what? Like, you guys get paid way too little. He says, y'all should be out here marching with us, right? But in their mind, they're thinking, no, we're better than you because we're making sure that you stay in prison. Hey, give me a second. You can tell that the weather's picking up and stuff now. So I told you, give me like a minute and a half, and we'll switch over to inside. All right. Appreciate you. All right, let's get inside, fam, before we lose all this technology out here. All right, I'm just about ready. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Alrighty. A lot of moving pieces. Okay. Can everybody hear me all right? Everybody see me? Everybody hear me? Looks like we're doing okay. Alrighty. So, sorry again. I'm glad we went to the beach. Had we gone to the beach, we would just had to stop. So praise y'all. We stayed inside. If y'all don't mind praying for my family as they're on the road picking up some stuff right now from the store. Oh, also too, that reminds brings back to my remember. We give honor and praise to the Most High for 17 years of marriage. I'm actually several days late, but I wanted to make sure I asked permission before I said it. I believe on Sunday was Auntie Mary and Big Brother Jimmy's anniversary, 17 years in. So we praise y'all for that. Y'all keep doing what you're doing and keep getting stronger in your marriage. I was listening to the conversation on the phone. Well, I wasn't really listening. I was hearing a little piece of it or whatever, but it was beautiful. It was very cute. I know brothers don't like to hear the conversations are cute. It was very cute. You can hear the lovey-dovey stuff. I love to hear the lovey-dovey stuff. So happy anniversary to you all. And happy born day today on the 10th of May for Sister Rose. Amen. All right. So we're excited and thankful and grateful for that. And everybody, if you don't mind lifting them up in prayer. And if I missed any, I'm trying my best to catch as many as possible. We had somebody who was part of the staff who used to literally just make sure that they were checking in with you guys and keeping up with all the born days and everything. But they actually got some family stuff that's kind of taking them away from any ability to really keep up with social media right now. So we're just hoping and praying that they're doing well. So forgive me. I'm trying my best every once in a while to look at the stuff you guys have sent in the list. So if I miss them, if we're not saying them as regularly right now, or maybe if somebody feels like they got time, they want to help out, and that is real simple. You just got to, even if you just want to say, make sure we know whose born day it is, it would help out immensely. We like to do little things like that to let people know that we're paying attention to stuff like that because we family. It's not just virtual, it's reality. Alrighty. We're inside. I think so forgive the noise or whatever, you know, we got family around, but we should have enough space over here to, at least you guys can hear everything that's going on. So forgive you hear some stuff in the background moving, whatever it is, what it is. We got regular lives out this piece. How you doing, Brother Ali? How you doing, JH? So where were we at? We hit, what was the last thing we talked? Oh yeah. So the overseers, all that stuff. So people have been tricked into this conversation of believing that a lot of stuff just happens kind of randomly, right? And so since that's where people kind of start, is that this is just random, we don't really see the banality, or we look at it as the banality of evil, or, you know, we're just kind of even so used to it that we don't even think of it as evil, but somebody did this stuff on purpose. This was not a random thing. This was not just a random occurrence. This was not a one-time thing. This was not, it just so happens that we have colorism, right? This is not just a thing that just so happened. This is not a thing of we just started to have a lot of these experiences. This is not something that just came into place, you know, today or yesterday. This is not something that if we just look hard enough the other way, it'll go away. You know, because that's what a lot of people tell us. A lot of people try to tell us that the reason why there is racism, the reason why there is oppression, the reason why there is a lot of stuff that's going on is due to the fact of what is due to the fact that there's all this stuff going on, right? And the reason why all this stuff is happening, I'm sorry, I just said the same thing over and over again, forgive me. A lot of people want you to believe falsely that the reason why we're going through a lot of issues that we're having, a lot of problems that we're having is because we're having the issues because everybody is basically just talking about it. If we would stop talking about it, if we had admitted, you know, if we stop speaking it into existence, then there would be no problems, right? If we stop speaking into existence that, people are still dealing with things of the past and that nobody really had a chance to heal, then everybody would just heal automatically, right? This is a lot of the conversation that people have, you know, where they want you and I to believe that this stuff would just go away if we would just leave it, right? People would just go away if we would just leave it alone. And the reality is that this stuff was put together on purpose. This is systematic. That means somebody put it in place on purpose. There's two words when it comes to the system that you got to be careful with. You have systematic. That means somebody put it in place on purpose. And then you have systemic. That means it runs now. When somebody put it together in place, it runs on purpose. So one of the best ways you could look at that is, let's say you have a watch, right? Or even you have a phone. Now this phone, right, was created. You can say whatever you want about it, right? But this phone was created. You can try to mix it. You can try to match. You can try to make it whatever you want. You can try to act like it wasn't created. You can try to act like, but this phone was in fact created, right? Somebody had to put this together, right? It's not even necessarily even a phone. Now it's a computer. We just call it a phone, right? Reality is we're not using phones anymore. Now we're just using straight computers, right? The word phone really means voice anyway. So if it's a telephone, it's something that teleports a voice, but we're not. So you could say in that sense, it's a telephone. Outside of that, these really are not phones. Just like your televisions are no longer televisions. Your televisions, are really more so just a monitor, right? Whatever you connect to the monitor is really what you're watching on your television, right? Nowadays, it's completely different experience than when everything was in there, right? That being said, even when we're dealing with this stuff, right? Somebody created this. So when they created it, it was systematically created. Okay? When Apple made this, it was systematically put in place. I don't even recall what number this is, if this is 6 or 8 or whatever this is, right? But when this was made, it was created. Okay. Now, so it's systematic. Now, after it was systematically created, somebody put a bunch of systems and things in here to work to where they work on their own. So if you turn your phone off, the time will still be kept. Why? Because somebody put something systemic in what is systematic. Did you catch that? So systematic is somebody created the system on purpose, but it's systemic when it runs on its own. If you have a watch, anybody have a watch? If you have a watch, and I'm talking about an old school watch, you can just talk about a new school watch too. But if you have an old school watch, right? Your old school watch is designed systematically. People put the cogs in there, people put the nails in there, people put screws in there, people put the battery place that goes in there, they put the copper in there, the wiring, all that stuff systematically. They want a system to come together. But what's the point of the watch? The watch is designed for you to what? To ensure. The watch is there to make sure that it keeps up with the time no matter what, right? It does some other things as well, but the main goal of the design of the watch is what? Tell you the time no matter what. So this watch is designed to continue to move within itself. That's systemic, right? So the big hand on the watch moves systemically, meaning that it doesn't need you to move. Matter of fact, it will tell you the time. Many people don't even have any kind of intrinsic time. It used to be a thing where you were trained to be like, oh, okay, it's the second watch. It's the third hour. It's the fifth hour. Like it used to be, people could look at the sun and be like, oh, okay, the sun is up. So this must be, where is the sun at? Okay, the placement of the sun, maybe this is, the 6th hour, the 7th hour, the 8th hour. We could look at it and go, okay, this is where it is. We don't do things like that anymore. But there used to be a time to where we had that. It was something systemic. It was something in the fabric of society where if somebody said, meet me here, this is why time for a lot of people is difficult, and being on time, to be honest, is because a lot of us are used to somebody else telling you the time, right? Something else is supposed to tell you what time it is. So a lot of us do not wake up due to what's intrinsic. A lot of us wake up because somebody tells us to wake up. Oftentimes too, because you don't have a systemic thing in order or in place, right? Or a systematic thing in place that says, I will go to sleep at this time. I will make sure I eat at this time. I will make sure, and I won't have all these variables. So when you have all these variables, things like that, you lack something called discipline. And it's often interesting that many people who are disciples are not disciplined, right? Right. Now, I would say you can't be a disciple and be undisciplined. You can't be a student, right? You can't be a studiante and not be somebody who is disciplined and astute at being disciplined. But nevertheless, this is what people want to tell you and I, and how you do it, Tanisha. And anybody I missed, by the way, especially when we were outside and it was raining in my face a little bit, please charge it to my head, not to my heart. Thank you for being on. Right. These are things that we have to recognize and realize and take into account, that many people live undisciplined lives and then get to a place where they say, I want to be disciplined, or I want to be a disciple. But you can't be a disciple with zero discipline, right? I mean, maybe you can be in title, but you definitely won't be in anything meaningful as far as work ethic, moving towards what Yah has, etc. You will miss it every single time. Right. And so because we have gotten to a place to where we are disciplined by other people who don't even share our belief systems, because we got into a place where we're disciplined. How you doing, Chantel? And how you doing, Donovan? Because we're disciplined by people who are all over the place, because we're disciplined by mindsets that don't have anything to do with where we say we're headed, we've gotten to this place to where evil abounds, right? Evil lives. That's what abounds means, right? That evil lives. Matter of fact, let's go to some scripture real quick. Let's go to some scripture real quick and talk about evil abounding, right? Because people don't think about where does evil live, or how does evil live, or how do you get to a place where evil can live, right? When I'm sorry, y'all, hold on a second. The dog's not the problem. Right, but let's get into this. Now I'm having issues with signal. Okay, all right. So let's go to where we at. Oh yeah, evil abound. Sorry, let's go to the scripture real quick. Excuse me. Right, people don't want to talk about this, but where does evil live? Let's go to Romans chapter 5. We'll start at verse 20, or maybe we'll start at verse 20. We'll see when we get there. Give me a second. I'm trying to get Facebook on for us real quick. Then we can get into this word. Why am I? I'm sorry, y'all. We're almost there. Going to Romans chapter 5, verse 20, though, if you want to turn there. All right. Romans chapter 5. We're going to start where? Verse 20. I still got water all over these devices, man. All right. Romans chapter 5, we're going to go to verse 20. Now watch this. So Romans chapter 5, verse 20. So this is what it says here in Romans 5:20. It says, and I'm coming from the King James Version, it says, moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound. But where sin abounded, right, grace did much more abound. Verse 21, that as sin hath reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through right lawful standing unto eternal life by Yeshua HaMashiach Adam. All right. So I want to go back to verse 20 real quick. The law entered, and people get this messed up, right? The law entered. Now, what does law do? Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Correct? How you doing, Sister Benita? Right? So the law entered, right? And this is what people do. People go, okay, well, see, this is going to say that the law is bad. Check this out. Moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound. That the offense might abound. When the law enters, somebody's offended. Now, has this said that we shouldn't therefore follow the law? No. Right? It says the offense might abound, but then it says something, if you're not careful, you're not realizing it's saying the same thing. The very next thing it says, but when sin abounded, grace did much more abound. So wait a minute. So when the law entered so that sin, or so that the offense might abound. Because if something offends the Most High, it is what? It is sin. All right. So moreover, the law entered, offense happened. Who's offended? Right? If there is no law, if there is no moral compass, right? If there is nothing that we have to worry about, then nobody's offended. But why is everybody offended? What's going on that causes everybody to be offended? What's going on that causes everybody to be offended? right? The law. And also, too, there's a moral law. There's a moral compass. There's a moral governance. Something we were all created with says something's not right. Right? How you doing, Tiana? Thanks for being on. Thank everybody for coming over from the podcast. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're on TikTok, we appreciate you. Right? So everybody's going on. We might call it a conscience, sure. Right? If that's what it is. I know there's a very Greek term and stuff, and most people kind of know what a conscience is, but fine. If it's, you want to call it your conscience, but something is there that sits at you, that eats at you, something you were created with, something that makes you recognize it's wrong. Something innate, something that before you were born with, something that you were dealing with when you were in the womb, something that didn't even necessarily have to be taught to you, but it was taught to you through DNA memory, whichever fashion we want to go through, right? When there's law allows us to find out that there's offense. Paul says, the same Paul we're reading now, Romans chapter 5, right? There's also the same Paul that in Romans chapter 7 says he realizes that he wouldn't know what lust was if there was no law that said, thou shalt not covet, right? If he did not recognize what coveting was, and that coveting was asking for something that didn't belong to you, or wanting something that didn't belong to you, or taking something even that didn't belong to you. Really, coveting is just even the wanting of it. Well, then he wouldn't recognize what lust was. So there is no lust if there is no law in his mind, as far as fine, he will lust for something, but then guess what? He'll lust for it and think that there's nothing wrong with it and end up being separated from the Most High forever, rather than having a mindset that, wait a minute, I'm lusting for something. There's a law out there that says this is in fact wrong. I want something that doesn't belong to me. I want something that's not righteous, right? So the law entered that the offense might abound, that it might live. That's why the law entered. The law came in so that what? The law came in so that somebody would get offended. And people who are lawless, they get offended when you give out law. Right? But verse 20 now, but where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. Now, here's the deal. People are going to say grace. They're going to say, look, see the grace. Grace is more important. Grace is unmerited favor. That's a lie. That's propaganda. That's somebody trying to not deal with morality correct. Are you starting to see why we went here? Right? See, that's propaganda when you say grace is unmerited favor, because grace is not unmerited favor. That's not true. Grace is charis or charisma. Grace is who the Most High is. If you say it's my grace, then you give somebody your grace. If your grace is mercy, cool. But if your grace is unforgiveness, I don't want your grace. This is why people call even people of certain positions in monarchy, or even in certain positions in certain places in politics, whatever, in different countries. They might say your grace, your grace. They're saying, hi, your grace. They're saying, hey, hello, who you are, and who you are is above me. I bow down to your grace because I bow down to your position that you hold. Grace is not unmerited favor. When they say, hello, your grace, they're not saying your unmerited favor. They're saying this is who you are. Right? So when the law entered, it entered so that there would cause offense. And when sin entered, the Most High, who he is, did much more abound. So when the law entered, offense entered. See, now, I don't know if somebody caught this. I'm going to try and say this a different way, right? So when the law entered, catch this. So when the law entered, it's saying that when the Most High gave us the law, offense lived where we are, right? But then it says, but when sin, so that when somebody broke the law, when that entered, it says who the Most High is came in much more, right? Why? Because when the law came, it came to show you that these things are offensive to the Most High, right? So then when you sinned, when you sinned, what happened? The Most High showed up even more, or he has more of a right to come at you now. You think his grace is his unmerited favor. This is not saying that he forgave you more. Watch this, verse 21, that as sin hath reigned unto death, sin is what causes you to lose your eternal life. Even so might grace reign through what? Righteousness. So grace only reigns over you if you are what? Righteous. Who the Most High is only reigns over you if you are righteous. What does righteousness mean again? Righteousness means I'm sorry, see, I'm about to say the wrong thing. Righteousness means right, lawful standing. If you're not in right, lawful standing, then you cannot be righteous. If you are not in right, lawful standing, therefore, grace cannot rule, which means the Most High himself cannot be your ruler, which means the Most High himself cannot be what morality is based off of for you. I'm sorry, hold on. Let me go take care of the dog. I'm sorry. I apologize. I will be right back. They're not handling it too well, I guess. Sorry. I guess we lost some people. It is what it is. So I'm not even sure where we are. Grace. Yeah, she want to be on lap where I am. I can't even bring her where I am right now. I know she got space, but might have to. Anyways, I think she'll be all right at least for a little bit. Where were we? Oh yeah. So great. Sorry. So back to so moreover the law entered that the offense, there we go, might abound, that the offense would live. The offense lives and people get offended, right? And they get offended because you're dealing with their morality or their lack thereof. Okay. After that, but where sin abounded, where sin lived, right? Then grace, the Most High, shows up even much more. And he has to, even if he's going to forgive you. But this is the deal, right? Verse 21, that as sin, as falling short, as missing the mark, hath reigned unto death. So sin only has rule unto when you pass away. Then after that, you're going to have to deal with judgment. You're going to have to deal with righteousness, right, lawful standing. If you decided to keep sinning, there's right, lawful standing for that. There's procedural law, remedial law. It's a substantive law to deal with what you did with natural law, what you did with universal law, what you did with kingdom law, right? But then it says, but even so, might grace, who the Most High is, the charis, the charisma, who the Most High is, right? Might what? Reign through righteousness, through right lawful standing unto eternal life by the door. Who's the door? Yahashua HaMashiach, our Adam, our Lord. All right. So it's telling us there that even what's happened with this systemic stuff that's been brought into your churches, your assemblies, your camps, etc., where there is this mindset that says that we are supposed to be full, or we're supposed to be excused from the law because Christ left us, is not actually true, because you still have to be in right lawful standing, right? And people don't want to bring up righteousness or right lawful standing. By the way, if there's righteousness, that also means there's a righteous way one should conduct themselves, which means that our moral values and the moral fabrics of society will be judged by something. There is something that we know. We know that there's certain things that are supposed to be there. And matter of fact, societies that end up being lost or end up going away end up not being what they once were or just going away, period. By the way, really, that doesn't even really happen. Societies don't just disappear. People just phase into something else, right? So the Roman Empire never went anywhere. The Roman Empire now is just spread out into different places, right? Some of it has now become the Arabic type empire, or right, or the Arabic empires of old have not gone away. They've just spread into different things you call Egypt, or you call Israel, or you call, and really that's not even Israel, to be honest. Israel's not even Arabic by the standard we have Arabic today, because Arabic used to just mean nomadic, but now we mean Arabic as certain Muslims or whatever. Not even realize that many of them are not even the Muslims that you think of. And the Muslims, in the way they produce themselves and present themselves, they're not even living up to the values, the standards, nor the culture or traditions of their fathers. Right? Well, you could say the Catholic Church isn't part of over Rome, sure, but that's only one part of it. And even that part, that would be Western Rome, right? And even Western Rome was lost to a lot of them. And even the Roman Catholic Church actually lost all their power and then all of a sudden came back. Even we see that head that was off, but now is back, right? That's, I'm explaining in Revelation chapter 13, where one of the heads of the beast was actually cut off, but somehow came back to life. We have these things right in front of us where we can see them very clearly. Like, so even Rome has taken Rome, and we forget there's many powers that come together. So you have the Roman Catholic Church, sure, but don't forget the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope is really nothing more than a 32 or 33 degree Mason, right? But that doesn't mean that he's the highest Mason. The Pope has checkerboard floors on his stuff, and so that's what you're going to see when you go to your award shows, when you see the Oscars, right? And you see literally a recreation of Babylon that you're walking through on the red carpet. They never show you any of that because you're not supposed to know that unless you go. That's just for those who are special guests or special people who want to come into the culture of what you call the Oscars. Oscar even being after the what you call God, Oscar. Right. But you can also talk about the fact that the United States corporation, those Masons that came over, you're dealing with George Washington. He's a Mason, right? Got a big obelisk. You're worshiping him as well. There's a lot of different people who have taken this up, but they're all under one spirit or one beast. Remember, the beast gets under the Antichrist. All of them bow down to the Antichrist spirit. And the Antichrist spirit basically bows down to make sure that the beast, the government, and the one the government is based off of, the serpent, that they're both always shown. So no matter how we're going to look at it, we got to know the system. We got to know the approach. And we have to realize what version of morality is out there. We're going to talk about the banality of evil. Then first of all, evil is always evil. And secondly, what are the systems that are in place to get us to a place where something's born? Because here's another thing about the woman who wrote about the banality of evil. She's trying to also get across the point that we have certain systems in place. Like we have systems to where human beings, one of her biggest points that she brought up is that human beings are not thought of as humans. They're thought of as capital, right? And we think that means that it's capitalism. And we also, here's another thing you've been duped in. All over the world, people of all different types of colors, backgrounds, political views, political affiliations, all been duped by this very fact that I'm about to tell you. And some of you are going to, look at me weird when I say this. Some of you might have an aha moment. Some of you might say, yeah, I knew it, whatever. Right. But here's something that we don't discuss a lot. There's no such thing as a difference between capitalism and chattel slavery. They've always been the same. A human that's owned as a chattel slave is capital. Somebody that's into capitalism can't have capitalism run without chattel. So they're both part of a bigger system. But we were taught the fight was to get rid of chattel slavery, even though chattel slavery still exists. But it was to get rid of chattel slavery. I mean, we know it exists in prison, but still, we want to get rid of chattel slavery. I mean, I know we can't have our shoes if we don't have it, but still, we're going to get rid of chattel slavery. I mean, I know we're kind of painting outside the lines of coloring around a little bit and being creative with, well, somebody has to work this type of job barely to make pennies. We make it hard for them to be able to afford a basic place to live and basic like food and stuff. But, they're not chattel slaves. I mean, they're in the indentured servitude, but the indentured servitude is more like Russian serfdom, which is basically what's the difference between that and chattel slavery. But still, There's a difference, right? We're kind of being creative with what's chattel slavery and what's capitalism. But the reality is that chattel slavery is for capital gain, and capital gain can't exist without without slavery. We were duped into believing that there's a difference. So if you say you're a capitalist, somebody says, I'm a staunch capitalist. Yeah, okay, then you got to have chattel. Well, I'm in the chattel slavery. Well, yeah, you do that because you need to make capital. And all your Revolutionary War was literally people in the South who had the money were like, hey, we make our stuff by not worrying about everybody having capital. We who own the chattel, we're the ones that make the decisions. Everybody works around us. We are the sun, and they are everything else, right? We are the sun, they are the solar system type thing, right? If you believe in such things, right? We are the sun. Everybody around us is the solar system. So let them be Mercury, and let them be Mars, and let them be Jupiter, and let them be the moons of Jupiter, and let them be Saturn, and let them be Uranus, and let them be Pluto that comes in and out of the system. It don't even really matter because it's not even part of what we do. That's just in the outskirts. Let all this stuff. But we are the sun. Worship us, right? And capitalism says, well, time out. We have to make everybody believe that they have anybody could make it. Right? So we need you to at least get rid of the title of chattel. And we need to have, we're still going to be up top, but we need to make sure that the chattel are still under us. And some people will on purpose because they think that they have the same opportunities we'll have. We need to make sure that they work like chattel, but they think they're indigent servants. Those who are in freedom, by the way, I'm giving you real titles of stuff, right? You have kings, you have lords, you have free, you have serfs, you have slaves. Those are basically the 5 parts of classes. Those are basically 5 classes that exist in every single system, no matter what. They might try to give you 40, 50, 100 versions of that. You're only really going to have 5, especially nowadays. You're going to have a king. Like in the United States of America, you said, we don't have a king. Who are your CEOs? Who are the people that tell the president what to do? Who are the people that Congress can't make a move on unless one of their representatives shows up and says, Congress will allow you to vote for this, right? So you have kings. You have lords. Who are your lords? Your lords are like your presidents and your vice presidents. Your lords are the people that work underneath the CEOs. Your lords are those people who have more than you, but they really still slaves. They just slaves with more benefits than you, right? And when you have more benefits and privileges, you actually cape up for the system more than the people who have less. But either way, you still are only a lord. Like, so LeBron James, as much money as he makes, he's not a king. He's a lord. Right? He can't defend stuff the way that you want him to. He can't just say, we're going to build stuff for Black people. He can't say, let's make food and have food be bountiful and plentiful for everybody. And I only have to spend billions on that. I can spend $1 million. Shoot, I spend $1 million just to be able to make sure my body's taken care of. Imagine if I just got some land and then put money into making sure that seed and stuff is grown. And then I could take out of that and literally pay maybe 5 to 10 people, even if it was 30, 40,000 a year, just to make sure that food is distributed and taken care of, and right, and we could be fine. We could even find a family that's a huge family. We could find a family of 8 and just make sure that all 8 people are on the payroll, and that family's life would change, and so would the lives of the community of our people change forever. Right? That's not what he's going to be into. He goes right back to the same school system. He has to. Now it's the banality of evil. You can say, well, maybe he thinks that's what it is. Maybe that's what he was raised. Maybe he knows that's better than what he had. Look at what he's doing in his community. Sure, but let's be honest. What he's doing for his community, teaching them about self? And I say this, and people think you're being mean. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just having an honest dialogue. Right? Like, we don't recognize that in order for capitalism to exist, chattel has to exist. And for the chattel to exist, chattel is just to help you with capital. If we have more chattel, if we have more slaves, then guess what? Then basically we're able to ensure that we can keep costs down. And if too many slaves start making too much money, what do? We get rid of jobs, and we make sure the kings or the lords on top that they can have more money allocated to them. It will have less people that work. And those people now have more on them. The chattel and the so-called serfs, they have more on them now than they did before because we got rid of a bunch of jobs. Right? And now people are frustrated, this and that or whatever. But guess what? If we let these people be without jobs, fine. Let them do their little unemployment thing. Let them do this. They could destroy the system by just not going back to work, because they found out already in 2020, right? Y'all found out in 2020 when you couldn't go to work and people were just losing jobs left and right. And then they started trying to get you to go back to work in 2021, 2022. A lot of y'all started saying, I'm all right. I'm gonna wait till they raise the price on this rate or I'll get another job. And didn't even think about the fact that for 1, 2, 3 years, some of you even still are living, and matter of fact, are kind of happier not having a job. You say, well, I'm stressed. Some of y'all aren't always stressed. Some of y'all are just like, you know, some of y'all need to figure out how to start doing your own stuff while you're at home. Right? But this thing has been designed to where they know after a little while, people who want to do this and people who think that you're not a human as much as you are capital, you're not a human as much as you are a chattel, you're not a human as much as you are a straw man, you're not a human as much as you are property. They know that most people will kind of fall for the okie doke again and at some point just go like, well, I need a job, I gotta have the 9 to 5. That's the only way you're gonna make it. And unfortunately, if we be honest, that's not really gonna change till y'all comes back. You said you wondered if the Great Depression was fake, stage for an agenda. So that's a great point, babe. The answer to that is yes. I try to stay away from it somewhat because, especially people who lived through the Great Depression, and there are people who still are alive who lived through it, right? Or are definitely affected by it, right? There's still people alive that fought in World War II, stuff like that. And so I don't want to be dismissive, right? I don't want to say that nobody dealt with poverty. Let's keep it a buck, though. You think everybody was poor? Like when they say everybody was poor during the Great Depression, what do they mean by everybody? Who is that? Who is everybody? For educational purposes only, right? And you can say allegedly. Let's say allegedly I'm saying this, right? Allegedly I'm saying this. Maybe this is not true. Maybe this is just a think tank. Maybe this is a theory. Let's just say it like that, right? But to be honest, who are all the people, when they say everybody was poor, who is everybody? There were no farmers. There was no food. Okay, the masses. Who are the masses? I'm not trying to. I want. Let's do a think exercise because people tell us stuff all the time, and then we don't look. Who are the masses? And by the way, if we're saying it's a depression, let's just even say this for the sake of argument. Let's do something real quick. I'll go back to what we're talking about. Just for a second. Fine. Let's say they had a Great Depression. What is a version of depression? They had this Great Depression, right? By the way, they told you that what you went through recently was supposed to be worse than the Great Depression. I don't know if any of y'all caught that, but they told you that supposedly what you just went through was worse than the Great Depression. How many meals did you miss? See, because it's propaganda. Somebody's messing around with your version of morality, of how you think, of what you do. It's propaganda. They told you it was worse. No offense, no shade. I'm not saying all of us had it easy, but I'm just saying, how many of you starved? And then when they said, "Oh, jobs have gone up such and such a percent," or I'm sorry, unemployment went up such and such a percent, or whatever. We know that unemployment, they don't even, once you get off of unemployment, they don't even count you as being unemployed. So when they said all of a sudden everybody was employed overnight, I mean, that just means they had to wait for a bunch of people to stop being on unemployment checks. I mean, what is a depression? By whose standard? You see what I'm saying? By whose standard? That's why we got to understand. We got to be under the correct standard. I'm sorry, what you said? Your mom was raised on a farm in the 30s. She said she didn't know for depression until they told her there was one. They didn't lack anything. Okay, so we have somebody straight up telling us from their experience, mother raised in the 30s, right? You said your mother, yeah, mother raised in the 30s, 1930s. Mama said, I didn't know there was such thing. It's like a lot of you. A lot of you were told you were poor. Until then, you didn't know you were poor. Some of y'all grew up in the back end of the country, old country road, no paved roads, never, raised at home, didn't start going to school until you was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Some of y'all listening right now, that's your story, right? Somebody had to tell you you were poor, or you had to go around other people who had better things than you. And then by somebody else's standard, you started saying, oh, wow, I guess we don't have. Some of y'all now have left the farm, have left the farms that y'all owned because everybody said you should leave the farm, be civil, be organized, be rich, do all that stuff, right? And then as soon as you left, now after a couple decades passed, and now everybody's trying to go back to what you were in, and you say to yourself, man, I was rich. You said your grandmother was born as well, born in 1924. So there we go, two people now. So we got one person saying the grandmother born in 1924 says she ain't know nothing about no depression. Somebody saying that their mother was around the 1930s, didn't know anything about a depression. Somebody had to tell them they were depressed. Isn't that an interesting thing? You see what I'm saying? And this is a moral dilemma. There's an evil here that we want to not talk about. And we were raised shaping in iniquity, raised in evil. And we even have allowed evil ones the power to be around us so much that now we just go ahead and when somebody evil speaks something over you, you just say, okay, I'll take it. But what was the depression? You know that the best time to make money on the stock market is during the depression. That means people who know how money works, they actually start buying up stuff during depressions while everybody else is trying to get rid of it. Because value don't change. I don't know, this is turning into a whole this is turning into a financial literacy thing right now. But real talk, look, value don't change, baby boy, baby girl. They've tricked us. And I'm not gonna act like I'm perfect. Right, I got my issues, and I'm learning on the fly too, because there's some stuff that I thought I had, and some stuff that I'm sorry, what you say? Oh, that's what your mom said too. Okay, that's 3 people. There we go. Right, but the real talk now. Like value don't change. So if I own the corner store and it's a depression right now, the corner store is still valuable. Somebody says, but I'm not making as much money. Right? You need to put more stuff in the corner store. You need to have more items and stuff. You need to make sure you hold on. Now, this is why you should have savings together. You should have certain things, or you should be as little dependent on the system as possible. Because some of you, are so dependent on the system. Maybe you don't have the corner store set up there. Maybe the corner store is on your property, right? But you make sure, matter of fact, buy property. People buy property when it's nothing. And all these places that you see in all of our communities have become dilapidated, right? Those of you who are in the San Fran area and you cross that bridge and you go over to Oaktown and all that stuff is dilapidated and falling apart. You know why that is? That's because there's a whole bunch of people with money who buy up all the stuff in Oaktown. And they do everything they can to make it go down and depreciate. They can't wait for the Warriors to go further away. They can't wait for this to move out. They can't wait for the Raiders to go. They can't wait. They're trying their best to wait for everything to go down and go down and go down and go down. And all these black folk are going to be sitting there trying their best to keep going outside of town. None of them are going to start businesses. None of them are going to sow into each other. None of them are going to grow food in their own place. None of them are going to just go outside, catch some rain and bottle it up. And you can go ahead and sell it in the community. It'll be clear water that'll heal you. It can even be used as eye salve if it's snow that you catch or whatever. Nobody's going to think about how we can do things within ourselves because we just go, we're in a depression, we're poor, we're broke, we don't have anything. You got access to all this stuff, and because there's people around you that own stuff that won't do anything with it, you have decided that what you own, you won't do anything with it either. So you leave and you try to go to them. You go to their grocery stores. You don't make sure that you say, hey, look, even if we have to shut down a couple of ours, any grocery store that's in our community, it won't smell. And some of y'all who know what I'm talking about in the hood, you know that some of your grocery stores you go into, it got that smell. Let's be honest, right? And it's because if we don't say nothing about it, we don't say, I'll stop shopping here if y'all don't make sure that produce, doesn't smell correct. I'm not going to be here if it's not smelling like fertilizer. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You go in the hood store versus the regular store, it's got a little smell sometimes to it. Right, and you go other places, but they don't play that in other places, right? But and some of these people are the reason why your stuff play. They'll give you the stuff that rots. They'll give you the stuff that's nasty. They'll give you the stuff that's decrepit, and then you just take it, and you're like, well, I wouldn't go there anyway. No, don't take anything less. Have a standard that you're under, right? But this is systemic. You have it in your mind. Somebody systematically put in place to where you think your stuff is supposed to be low class. You think you are poor, but really you are rich. You feel you are poor, but really you are rich. And if you ever started saying, if I, like, watch this, if you go to a Costco and smelled in Costco what you smell in the hood, you would never accept that with you in Costco. You would go to speak to the manager immediately. At the hood place, though, you don't do that, right? We don't have standard for ourselves, right? In other neighborhoods, we don't think of it as this. But the Chinese store in the Chinese neighborhood, that's mom and pop. What we call mom and pop store, we just think that's, well, their stuff is just less value or they have less. No, no, no. A Chinese restaurant in a Chinese neighborhood is their mother and father's restaurant. It's their uncle's restaurant. It's their family's restaurant. You don't play around with that. They are invested, right? And they always sow into themselves. This is what happens during the Great Depressions. You ready for this? This is all that's going to happen during the Depression. Your dot-com bubbles, when they burst, when all this stuff happens, this is all that happens. You ready? People who invest in their own, right? They don't go through depressions. I'm going to say something that's going to mess with some of you, because you're going to say, well, that doesn't really make sense if you're dealing with the subject matter we're talking about today with Eichmann and with Hitler and with some other things. But I'm going to make a statement for you. And once again, this might mess with you. It might not, whatever. But let's have honest dialogue. You ready? Jewish people that lived in the United States of America during the 1930s, you never hear them talking about the Great Depression. I'm not saying this would be a bad thing. I'm telling you they're doing what we should be doing. Jewish people in the 1930s, they don't tell you about a Great Depression, even with people all over the world saying that they should come after them. You know why? Because they sow into themselves. How are you going to be depressed and everything that's value circulates in your community? What you find value in, you buy it from your community. This is the difference, right? They live with each other, by the way. Right now, people who are doing farming and this and that, you're hoping that the government will buy it, or you're hoping that somebody else will always buy stuff like that. Yeah, you're gonna run into an issue when people don't see a value in spending outside. But when you find value in the person, you'll find value in what the person has for you. And when you know that the person finds value in you, that means that what they're selling to you is not going to be anything less than what you would find valuable. Yeah, gentrification. Right? That's all you're dealing with. When you're dealing with a depression, I promise you. And look, I'm going to put it like this, because we get on rich people. We just go, rich people are this. Rich people, they just only look out for each other. Rich people are in the same environment. So they're basically the same, not just the same class, they kind of become the same culture. Even if they don't like each other, rich people still do business with rich people. Even if you can't stand them, rich people go on vacations with rich people. Why? Because rich people vacations is different than ours. You know what I'm saying? Like, no offense, no shade. I'm just saying, like, it's not a thing. I'm trying to tell you, like, we come strong at rich people. We're like, oh, see, they're rich. They must have done something wrong. See, look who they're hanging out with. Look, to be honest with you, you're not in a position. Now, maybe if you supported some of these rich people and did stuff, maybe they would start to support you. But that's not what you do. You've been taught even to have a class in between them. So there's some people with wealth who would love to help you, but you won't even deal with them when they tell you this is what you need to do. And you get mad at them. I know somebody not gonna like this, right? But see how evil stuff is messed up. I heard somebody preaching the other day, some African preacher, whatever, talking about money is the root of all evil. You a liar. You're a liar. Money is the root of all evil. The love of money, thank you for the love, appreciate you. The love of money is the root of all evil. If you love it, if you idolize it, if you worship it, if on your money, everything is like, God, we trust this and that. If you feel like you got to worship this thing, and that's the only way you can be seen as valuable, but it is the love of money, not money. Right? And because you were taught evil, somebody preached it to you. Thank you, babe. Somebody preached it to you. You're evil if you have money. Now you don't want it. You never studied it. You never learned how to spend it. You never made sure you were on time with payments. You didn't think that was important. You didn't think it was important to make sure you put money into the storehouse. Your Bible says, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. But you think you're supposed to bring ye all the tithes so that they'll spend it on lights. Nobody said build a building that you can't afford to have. You see the difference, right? But that's systemic. Somebody systematically taught you that over and over and over again. Some of you were taught, hey, but see, look, there's people who will try. I'm telling you from experience. There are people who have money who will go to you and say, hey, brother, sister, please just do this. Like, you're asking me for this and this and this. I promise you, I got you. But right, I'll even help you out for now. But this is what I need you to do. Do exactly what I tell you. And I promise you, all the stuff you're coming to me for, you won't need to come to me for. And that will help you because you need to be somebody who can be sustained, not just off of everybody else, but you need to be in a position to where you realize you're the ATM machine. And people will get upset and go because they'll still just go, no, I don't want to do all that. I just want you to go ahead. No, right? You don't recognize you have a love for money, right? Not a love for order and for structure. The person is telling you, do this. And you won't have to worry about it. Realize you are the ATM machine. You go to the ATM machine, not because of anything else. The ATM, or we'll put it like this. People come to the ATM machine because they want what's in it. And the ATM machine gets filled because people want what's in the ATM machine, right? So if you would recognize you are the ATM, that people are coming to you because of what you're filled with and because of what people take out, right? Treat people, and I know I'm not trying to say treat people like property. We got to be careful, right? But treat people like ATM machines. I see the value in what Alma does. So of course, I try to make sure if somebody comes to me and they say, hey man, I'm feeling sick, I'm down, tired, I'm downtrodden, I'm going through this, blah, blah, whatever. Guess what? First thing I'm gonna say, have you got in touch with Elder Alma? Try to see if you can sew into her. Blah, blah, whatever. She does her own business, but she'll work out for you. She'll look out for you. But look, and she's going to probably tell you and teach you, like, do these things, blah, 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 whatever. But if you really want to get healed and you want to get whole, I promise you, she's one of the best on the planet because I see the value, right? And I see people before who've taken out the ATM machine have gotten something valuable. So I say, okay, I'm going to fill the ATM machine back up. I'm going to put it right back in. Right? People out here talking about, I want alternatives to stuff and I need food alternatives, this and that. I say, okay, well, there's Bruda. There's Brother Charlie. You know what he do over here? Hey, I want some clothes I can wear with you. Not only Brother Charlie, but you can look at your sister Shima's coming on the way, right? We got people that crochet and do stuff. Riley can hook you up. We got people that can. We got brother Jermaine and others who are doing the t-shirt stuff. I mean, we got people all over. Yeah, you're talking about. I'd like to be able to have some soap and stuff and some things like that. Okay, well, you're ordering stuff through Amazon and everything, anyways. Why not go through Sister Akita, Sister Kelly, right? We got it stuff, right? I see the value. I see the value in it, right? And I've taken out from the ATM machine and I find out, oh, this thing is valuable. This thing is great. And so I try to sew back in, put the stuff back in. That's what you do with your society, right? But systemically, we've been taught in evil fashions that we shouldn't go through these things. What you say, earrings coming soon? There you go. So Tanisha said earrings coming soon. By the way, those on Facebook, when you see our sister, I share her stuff. As much as I can. I don't always see it. I don't always keep up. But we can look at each other. That's why we say put hashtag SOC on stuff and look on multiple platforms. You got the sister on there, Minister Shalom, I believe, up in the D. And she come on talk about it's 5 o'clock, y'all. It's 5 o'clock, y'all. If y'all seen that on Facebook, that's who that is. And I put that there because I'm like, hey, I'm not wearing any earrings or this and trinkets or whatever, but somebody out there might. And if you're willing to pay somebody else for them, you might as well put it into your own community. And if you put it into your own community and she puts something in the storehouse that affects maybe the church she's part of, or SOC she's part of, or her family she's part of, or whatever. But also, wait, if y'all buy several products from her and she got $50 extra and she sees you doing something for 20, maybe she buys 2 of them and still has 10 for herself. 5 for herself if she gave to the Most High the first fruit, right? But I'm just using this as an example. Minister Sherlin, if you find this, please, hopefully you don't mind me using you as an example, right? I'm just saying, this is how you build the stuff. But we don't even think about that. There is no depression when everybody's taking care of each other. There is no such thing as, I don't know how I'm going to make it when everybody takes care of each other. There is no such thing as who's going to be able to eat when Boaz says the 10% that's around, y'all take it that. I'm not even going to touch that. If you let the fruit, now if you let the fruit go rotten, that's different. But Boaz said, no, I'm going to put this out. And so if there's anything that goes rotten, it's not because I didn't give it. It's because you didn't take it. You see what I'm saying? Like there should be nothing. And I'm serious, whether it's posted yet or not, I'm trying to find the best way to do it. And I don't have everybody's information and stuff like that. And then the information I asked for before it was bad. So I'm going through a lot of stuff and we still don't have somebody, necessarily helping in that arena as of yet. But Even if it's not posted, there's no way somebody could be not just simply be like, hey, Pastor Kofi, I want to make sure that I've got some hygienic products or whatever. I want to make sure that I've got stuff for my skin, stuff for my health. I want to make sure that I have stuff for my body as far as cleansing myself. Who can I go to? I got 3 sisters right now, at least. Technically, like 6 of them, right? But I can't. I'm missing a couple names, but I could probably give you 5, 6 people if you just texted me and said, hey, are there some people that can do that? No problem. Hey, I need some people to do clothes, whether they're Israelite clothes, whether they got tassels on them, whether whatever. If you just want tassels, we got somebody for you. Like there's somebody here that does everything. So if you want food, somebody to deliver it and make it to where all you got to do is put it in either an air fryer if you like that one, or if you don't like it for different reasons, you could just put it in some natural grease and fry it for a little bit. There's not one thing that SOC, even in us still starting, cannot provide for each other. Right? So SOC, one of the reasons that we have an issue if we're dealing with lack is because that we lack sowing. So your depression doesn't come, right? When people talk about a financial depression, it comes from the fact that you haven't sown in. That's it. Because if you have stuff in the storehouse, how do you get depressed? If somebody can go through 7 years of plenty, then you should be saving, because then you might have to go through 7 years of lack. Come on. Right? 7 years of lack came from 7 years, or it's allowed somebody to get ready for, during 7 years of lack. There are people that never starved. How? Because somebody had the foresight to say, during the bounty, we will give. You see what I'm saying? It's not a difficult people think. There's people that give you the copper cups and the copper thermoses and all that. I mean, whatever you would ask, there's there's people that do legal documents. There's people that can write music for you. There's people that can make your logos. It should be at a point to where forget going to somebody else for all this stuff or whatever. You should literally, you could just ask, even if you don't see it, right? There will be a list. And we have put lists out before. But there'll be another list and another list and another list. But really, all we got to do is ask, and right? Seek and you shall find, knock and you shall enter, ask and it shall be given unto thee. We don't even ask. We don't even have it in our mind to ask each other. We don't even have it in our mind to ask. What do? Chattel slave mind. Go to Master's house. Go to Master's house. Master will make it all right. Master's got everything. Who is Master in this regard? Costco got everything. Right? Didn't talk about how your people well, yeah, you go into Costco. Well, I would get it from that mom and pop shop on the store, but there's cost $2 extra for it. I can get it at Costco for pennies on the dollar. I mean, you could, yeah. But what is it profit for you to gain the whole world and give to everybody else, and in the process lose the soul of your community? How you doing, Apostle Dr. Tama? Right? What does that do for you? I mean, you're absolutely right. I could go to Costco right now and get like 75 chickens. Right? That's what it feels like. You walk out of there with, right? I can come out of there with 75 chickens. Cool. Right? For the price of 15 from the mom and pop store. But after a while, there won't be a mom and pop store. And what does that do to mom and pop's children and grandchildren? Yeah, my children and grandchildren. And then it's even sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's low quality. Like it tastes all right, because really, can we be honest? This is the capitalist mind. This is the chattel mind, both coming together as one, like I said earlier. All right. I don't even know how we got here. This was not my intent, but we're going to roll with it. Okay. Praise y'all. All right. Look, let's be honest. You don't buy the Costco chicken, and I'm using Costco, and put whatever thing you want. You want to put, I don't know when Dixie actually does the one I went to that didn't have chicken or whatever made, but you'll put whatever, Publix, Giants, Jewel Osco, whatever you use, right? Piggly Wiggly, I don't know, right? But wherever you get this chicken from, the store-bought chicken that's already made, you're not getting it because it actually tastes great. Walmart, if Walmart does it, I know Walmart does chickens that are already cooked. I guess it makes sense. Oh, no, yeah, they do. I've seen that, right? But you're not getting it because it tastes great. I'm just gonna be honest. I know you think I'm gonna help you. Somebody says, "Oh no, it does taste great." No, it tastes great for store-bought, and it tastes great for the price point, right? It's cheaper than what you would normally buy it for, or it's more convenient. And so in your mind, this is physiological. In your mind, your mind goes, wow, okay, it tastes enough. They got enough stuff in there to make my brain waves do this and that or whatever for me to have my little foodie orgasmic experience and all this stuff. I saved money, even though it'll cost you money in the long run because of your health, but I saved money in the moment. All right, cool. This tastes great. That's what you say. That's what you do. Right? Like for real. It's not that it tastes great. It's that for all that stuff coming together, I guess this is great. And your mind goes, cool. And your tongue says, I'll agree, and your stomach says, hey, it fills up for the time being. And then you look around, your babies are eating, your spouse is eating, you go, okay, cool. But it's not, you said they don't even wash it. Well, I didn't even know that. Right. But it's for convenience. It tastes enough. It tastes great enough. But let's be honest, like, stuff tastes great. You can eat it. Like you have enough of that Costco chicken. You have enough of that Publix chicken. You have enough of that Jewel Osco chicken. After a while, you're like, nah, I need a break from this. Because your body's like, this isn't worth it anymore. Even if you got to go back to spending more money, you will say, no, we're not going to do this no more. Eventually, when you're like, okay, I can stomach it again, then you go back and you start trying to say it's so great again. It tastes so great, it tastes so awesome, but you never liked it in the first place. It's just what you had. And a lot of people, that's what you live by. You don't live off of stuff that actually is great for you. It's just stuff that you live what you got. Hey, I survive. Be in a relationship with somebody that's whooping you know what, for 2-3 years straight and won't leave. But hey, I survived. At least somebody loves me. They don't love you. But this is a mindset. Now watch this. How long is it that you have to be under the arm and the auspices and the thumb of your oppressor before you start realizing it's not even worth it? Even your oppressor had somebody that worked for him that said, give me liberty or give me death. Even they had somebody that was like, enough is enough. Now it gets to a place where how comfortable are you willing to be? And at what point are you willing to lose some type of ability to always be in the comfort? Being in the comfort is not always guaranteed, a guaranteed place of, always being comfortable with something doesn't mean that you're growing. You said there's no love put into it, empty calories. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, just because you're comfortable doesn't mean you're growing. And so you get to a place where you realize it's not worth it because you don't grow. Right? Catch this word today. I know they got it restricted on TikTok today, but you better catch this word today for those who were able to catch it. I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to help you out. You're in a position, some of you are in a position to where you are giving up growth because you don't want to give up comfort. It's comfortable surrounded by evil. Can we go there? We talking about the banality of evil. Don't let me go too long before we make sure that we keep this theme going, right? It's comfortable being around evil. You don't think so? Barack Obama comes out and he's offing more people with drones than anybody else did before and everybody else has since. But he can two-step. You comfortable with that, He looked like you. You comfortable with that. He's allowing people to make sure you don't have to know what's in your food while his wife is sitting up there dancing back and forth with Ellen and telling everybody that they want to make sure the children have healthy meals. But if we don't even know what's going into the meal, then how can we know if it's healthy or not? But I mean, she dances better than other first ladies, I guess. I guess. And thank you for the love. And how you doing, eccentric? If I didn't say so already. Right. I'm just saying we got to this place where we're comfortable with evil. We're not comfortable with righteousness. This is a big issue. Family, this is a huge issue. This is a huge concern. That we have become more comfortable with evil than we have with righteousness, because righteousness means that you got to change. Righteousness means you can't let the stuff stay in the same place. Oh, you sitting right there? Okay, Shalom, how you doing? Okay. You can come over here if you want. It's up to you. You want to lay down over there? It's up to you. You want to lay down over here? You want to lay down over there? It doesn't matter. Over there. Okay. You want a blanket? Take this one. There you go. There you go. Take that one. All right. So, but yeah. So, by the Bojangles, by the tap dancer, I see, like we don't want to admit, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and we're okay. We're comfortable. We become, as a society, people are comfortable with evil. You're comfortable with your child listening to people curse because it's just in everything. You're comfortable with, like, can I say something that is going to sound wild, but it is what it is. It's not that difficult to groom, unfortunately, because all these children shows have adults that low key kind of groom, but we're comfortable with it. Oh, you don't believe me? It's a little dangerous when the guy who left Blues Clues to become a rock star and everything. It's a little dangerous when he can come back after years, and it's so ingrained in the fabric of society that all he does is a video and he acts like he's listening to you. And adults were crying and saying what's going on and opening up and doing all this stuff. And at first I thought it was like a joke, it was funny, but I realized, no, these people are serious. And that was a Nickelodeon, which, by the way, Nickelodeon has a lot of groomers who have gotten in trouble over years, if not outright people who crossed the line. You're right, but isn't that interesting that there's a lot of shows where it's adults. Yeah, Steve, thank you. And then Steve's cousin or Steve's brother or whatever it was that came after him, and then they brought Blues Clues back, and everybody was into that new one. I think it was the Asian guy at that time or something like that. Just look back, but the stuff is designed where we usually look up to adults having some interesting dynamic with children that are not their children. And I'm not saying every single one was done on purpose for that, but I'm saying we got so used to it that we don't even question. We were talking about this last night too. Auntie Mary and some others said hello if you want to look and see. But you have to come around. But go ahead, get yourself together. But yeah, you have to, you really have to start thinking about the fact of all these, like we were raised off of a lot of people that, or what we were saying last night. Sorry, that's where I was. We were having a conversation last night with all of us, and we were speaking on how, we don't really know when sleepovers became a thing. Like a thing that people try to act like is normal, especially in our community. Because we were like, yeah, a lot of people now don't do them because of a lot of stuff. But we were like, to be honest, we were raised, because I was saying, I don't think I ever really did a sleepover at all. I don't know if I recall anybody being over my house for a sleepover at all. I do recall maybe we went to visit somebody and we're over their house, and that's the most that Solomon's ever done. But I don't think we've ever done straight up like, oh yeah, like just come sleep, unless somebody's in trouble. You got to take care of somebody's children. Somebody got a job offer or something, or an opportunity. Maybe they got to move or something that the family, helps out. But you don't really see, that wasn't really something that we ever really did. And we were like, when did that become a thing? Like it seems like somebody had to push for that somewhat recently, because we couldn't really, none of us, there were like 5 adults at the time, and none of us could really come up with when did that start. Yeah, that thunder's rolling pretty hard on the beach. Yeah, that's why I was gonna come out there to the beach. I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't. I started out on the balcony. I'm glad I started out there, because something said you're gonna have to come inside. But back in the day, you had Sesame Street. Oh no, yeah, definitely, yeah, Sesame Street, Gullah Gullah stuff. Even though that was a little different, out admittedly, but but that was a norm. It's kind of become the norm, where things that we would look at in real life as kind of suspect. We just kind of let it go. And somebody might think I'm taking a little too far. I can see that maybe, but these are these are things that maybe we should have conversation about. And we become so comfortable with evil. We become comfortable with telling people their worth. Have you ever thought about that? That we actually have people who believe that they're worth a certain amount, or worth a certain amount of money, or worth a certain amount of value. And so if somebody hears Bill Gates is worth whatever, and then they're only worth a fraction of what he's worth, then why would you think that they wouldn't value their lives? And that's evil. It's right. Maybe you can say there was righteous intent, but that's evil. Say whatever you want about that. You can try to make it as righteous as you want, but that's evil when we have a society set up to say that every human being does not have eternal value. You're only worth how much green we can put next to you, or how much CD, or how much rupees, or how much yen, or how much whatever. Yeah, how much money, how much. That's a very evil concept, because there's no amount of money that can pay for a human life. Some people try to mail order brides, things like that, but the reality is that there's no amount of money that can pay for a human life. You said you think it's clear to us because we see change firsthand. I can see that, right? But we're sitting there and we're holding on, and even it's easier for a camel to enter into the kingdom through the eye of a needle than it will be for a worldly rich man, right? One who only thinks that riches come from worldly stuff, to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And then we try to figure out, why can't people have the kingdom of heaven in them? Why is that so hard? Well, what's more important to people? What's more important to the average corporate sponsor? How the kingdom is presented, or how much money they can make off of you? Think about this, right? So many people on YouTube who, when you watch their videos, they're going to say, this video is brought to you on behalf of NordVPN, or this video is brought on behalf of Chili's, or this video is brought on behalf of so-and-so's pie, or this is once brought on behalf of China, right? These corporations, do they care about the kingdom being presented, or do they care about money? I'm sorry, what?
And other apps like Mr. Beast has, this is sponsored by Honey.
Yeah, Mr. Beast, which even that name within itself is kind of crazy, right? Mr. Beast. But, it's represented by Honey. These people don't care. Even when everybody did the whole thing, we're going to come against the system. Everybody's taking a knee during that season, 2019, 2020, everything building up, all this stuff. We're going to make sure we do. All those corporations did it because they knew that they would make money. Once they figured out that you guys didn't really care about the Black Lives Matter movement that much, and I'm not trying to say, look, I'm not a Black Lives Matter organization supporter. I believe that Black Lives Matter, but I could care less about the organization. That being said, though, once the corporations realized you didn't care that much about it, you just cared about it for a season, then they went right back to doing the same stuff and supporting the same people that you said. Didn't you just say in 2019, 2020, you wouldn't support so-and-so? But now Doja Cat still being supported. You said you wouldn't support so-and-so, but Taylor Swift and all these Swifties and stuff out here. Taylor Swift said, I'm so glad, or I look back to, when things were in the 1800s or something like that, or 1900s early, make America great again type thing. And she's been saying stuff like that for the longest time, because who is her constituency? Who are the people that buy her stuff? It's going to be people who don't like Black people. Let's stop playing with it, And somebody says, well, she's never come out and said explicitly. I mean, you don't have to. And by the way, it's okay if she does. Here's the deal, though. We don't support that. That's what we should get to, is here's the deal. We don't support that. Right? But now here's the deal. If we don't support that, now what do we support? Because if you don't support something, if you don't support anything, somebody will have something for you to support. It's like when somebody says, if you don't have a vision for yourself, somebody has a vision for you. If you won't support yourself, somebody else has something for you to support outside of yourself. Right? If we don't support our children learning our kingdom and our kingdom culture, rather, right? Jehovah's kingdom culture, therefore our kingdom culture is fellow heirs of Yehoshua. If we don't have something set up for them to support, right? Why is it that You see, look, in our eyes still. And look, if your child gets straight A's, I promise you, I will clap with all sincerity and all that stuff. I'm not saying that I don't support that at all, but I'm trying to tell you, we support our children getting all A's on lies and history books more so than we do about our children knowing who they really are. Salah. We do, right? Your children are supposed to learn that there's less presidents than there actually are. Your children are supposed to learn about Israel and never once think about themselves as being Israel. Amen, Minister Tamara. And you're going to be there. And we still got to talk too, big sis. I'm sorry. We still got to make sure we talk. We ain't talked yet. But yeah, these are things that are there constantly and consistently. The banality of evil. You get so bored or so used to doing the same thing around evil that you just think that evil is what's supposed to be. And then and watch this, then you get so involved with it that even though you swear you don't support it, if you do evil or around evil all the time, and your friends now are around evil, and your family's around evil, and your business is around evil, and your money is coming from evil and all that stuff, then eventually evil saturates your lifestyle so much that now when it's time for you to stand against evil, like even now when it's time for you to stand against evil, you don't stand against it. Right? You don't stand against it, or at least not as much. Why? Because a lot of stuff around you is, about evil. It's very difficult. Right? You're walking a tightrope that you're not designed to walk. You're having conversations you're not supposed to have. Now you got stuff like, think about this. Your children go to school, right? Your children go to school. Everybody's talking about Halloween for months, right? Matter of fact, you guys, when your children go to school, your teachers from the first day of school, because October 31st, right? So basically for the first day of school, your teachers are already like, we're going to do this and this and this for Halloween. Your child is being confronted with Halloween all day. All the children are talking about Halloween. Everybody's starting to talk about what they're going to wear. Your child is going to start seeing the candies in the candy in the store and everything. Your child is going to start seeing all the stuff that's happening and everything like that. Your child is going to go through all these different situations and everything that are happening and going on, right? And so what happens? What happens after that? What happens with those things that are going on, right? What happens is that your child says, okay, I must go ahead and I have to be in this position of being in a position to where the what do we say? Like your child starts believing that I need to fit in, right? I must fit in, right? And so all these things start happening, and now your child is influenced, right? The whole thing we were talking about yesterday with the soft era now, the soft era for men, this foolishness where men are starting to talk about their soft era and that men aren't supposed to be as strong. Forget just physically, but strong in the Most High. People talking about just strengthening their finances only. But if you're strong in the Most High, this stuff comes anyways with the territory, right? But everybody's so busy about the soft era. They're talking about the soft era and talking about this, that, the third, and everything. And the reality is that, and all the stuff we're talking about with this soft era, right? And there should be a softer side, sure, and all this stuff. But and all the stuff we're talking about with the soft era, let's not forget that also too, we need to make sure that we're ready for an era of righteousness. All this other stuff that you're trying to call it, and you're trying to talk about the sprinkle and the drizzles and all this stuff like that or whatever, right? The reality is what about the righteous era? What about an era of righteousness? What about an era to where we no longer do the same thing? When are we going to get into a place where we say, this is the era where brothers support brothers? And watch this. And somebody's not going to like what I'm saying because it's going to sound affirmative action-y to you. So be it. This is the era where brothers support brothers just because they're brothers. Right? Like there's somebody out there that I'm going to support just because there's stores that I go to where I know they're more expensive. But I'm like, because this is Afrocentric, I'm gonna hit you every time I come to your town. This is right. I look for it. We travel a lot, and as we travel, I try to find specific places. Hey, you do this. You provide this for the sisters. You do this for our skin. You do this for our hair. You do this for blah blah whatever. I try my best to make sure that as soon as I find it, right? We talk about the right. This is a righteous area. This matter of fact, how about this? Why not make this our area? And I know that obviously I'm talking about putting the Most High first. But why not make this our era? Like an era where we take care of each other. Right? Your child is our child. Right? Your issues are our issues. Your righteousness is our righteousness because we have the same standard. Right? Your standard is our standard because we have the same standards. So and all this stuff or whatever. And by the way, what is soft anyways? Right? Where do you get that from? So can you see how like we have allowed evil? You don't get to a soft era for men unless evil has permeated to get even men to think that soft, first of all, is okay. Secondly, you only get to a soft area for men if men haven't been rewarded for being strong. Right? Oh, thanks, babe. Right? We weren't rewarded for being strong. Right? If man was doing what if a man is doing what he's supposed to do because the Most High says it, and we don't reward that, then we can't sit up there and be mad at him when he says, "Well, I'll just go to doing something the Most High says not to do." And if the world would reward me, then why would I go back? Yeah, we don't know where to stand. If a sister is being righteous and she submitted not to the man, but submitted to the mission, and you as a man take advantage of her submission, why should she submit? I don't blame her. I try not to blame anybody. I try not to victim blame, and everybody's a victim of this wicked and neurotic and chaotic system. How you doing, Minister Shalom? The sound is broken up. Yeah, probably it's a signal. I think it's my device. It got rained on a little bit. I hope it's not jacked up. Right? But we don't want to have conversations about it. But everybody's been jacked by the system. Everybody's been messed over by the system. Everybody's been had a sense of community, camaraderie, culture, etc., taken away. Yeah, you can say in the 70s, even before that, and even with men being systemic, when they started removing men from the home in the 70s, we can still have honest dialogue about the fact that even though these men were systemically removed, we still were in the house until the crack epidemic. 50% of our homes, over 50% up until the crack epidemic. Before the crack epidemic, we still had over 50% in the homes. Right? Something happened to where even like, watch this, selling dope, selling crack cocaine, etc., became more important because money became more important than families. If it was truly family first, then nobody would have destroyed families. We wouldn't have destroyed families. The government didn't care about families. We already know the beast doesn't care about families. But if we really truly were family first, we would have never said we're going to go ahead and do something we know will tear families up. And if somebody says, well, we didn't really know, people try to do that, right? Even the real freeway Ricky Ross, he tries to do that all the time. Well, nobody really understood what this stuff was going to do, man. I got family that be on drugs and stuff, whatever, and they still be all right and everything, man. No, stop. Right? We're not going to act like cocaine just came out of the 80s. We're not going to act like nobody was taking drugs and we didn't see people, families broke apart in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s. We're not going to act like people didn't shoot up stuff in the 1920s and 30s, whether you had money like that or not. We're not going to act like we didn't know that pimps would use drugs to make sure that their wifeys, that their bottoms, that their women of the night. We're not going to act like they didn't do that to keep them in control and keep them in order. We're not going to act like people weren't drugged out during the Great Depression. So you see what I'm saying, right? Like this thing is systemic. This thing is a system, and this thing has been in order and been doing this to come against the families for a long time. And we've gotten so used to evil that we make excuses for evil. But maybe we should stop rendering excuses for evil, because the more excuses we render, right, the more we render ourselves, I won't say evil, maybe we make ourselves complacent with evil. He said, or that they found a correlation between addiction and melanin. Well, that we could talk about, but the reality is that we know better. So we could say, yeah, definitely that, okay, they found the melanin and stuff like that. But also too, once again, we give up a little too soon. We're not, melanin isn't a new thing to us as a people. Melanin goes back to the pineal glands, and people focus on melanin crystals with Kemet, 4,000, 5,000, well now 5,000 years ago, so, and even with a lot of that being taken away from us, there's still this whole, like, I'm saying, a lot, forgive me. Native Americans, they knew that alcohols were spirits and stuff in there that they couldn't necessarily deal with. They did have things that they took and stuff, but they wouldn't take alcohol the way that we do alcohol. They wouldn't do as much of it, and definitely wouldn't ferment it and stuff in the same way that we do, because they knew that stuff didn't work. But now, once again, you can become complacent about it, or you become gentrified, or it's just become something that's in your family. And now you just make the excuse, well, it's in my DNA, this and that, I can't get out of it. There's a lot of Native Americans that could come out of some of this stuff or whatever. There comes a point to where, when are we going to say, okay, we know the evil's done. We know what happens. We know that we went away from real food. We know what we went away from, even where we come from. Like, some of the sicknesses that people have is because you try to eat stuff that you weren't even raised with, or that the place that your people come from, they're not even, you would have never ate. Like, there's a reason why you eat that way. It's a nice treat for somebody who's got money. Oh yeah, they go to Jamaican restaurant, they eat, okay, that's really cool, right? But there's a reason why Jamaican people eat Jamaican food, because you eat the food of where you come from. You're created for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a way that, like, I just had some jollof rice recently or whatever. And even with it being spicy and stuff, and it being some special spices, I actually had the Nigerian jollof rice. There's a difference between the Nigerian and Ghanaian, even though I wouldn't say it's that as big as what people say. I know that's sacrilegious, but nevertheless, had some jollof rice, and had some of the spices that I hadn't had in a while. And even though it didn't really do like damage, so to speak, to my body or whatever, I got a reminder, oh yeah, this is a different level. But the way that they make it is something that's more agreeable with my body. So even though I hadn't had it in a long time, it actually didn't do, as much, whatever, as I thought it might. Right. But that's because if you eat of that stuff, like you're designed specifically to have some of that stuff. We eat a lot of things that's not even not just only fake food. I'm talking about there's foods from different parts of the world. Dr. Lai Africa talks about that a lot, to where he'll talk about how he's one of the first people bringing to my attention to where, why did the slaves, so-called slaves, eat certain ways? Well, people who came from other places, they had actually brought stuff and planted stuff over here as well, which we never give credit for. But also, let's be honest, there's a lot of Negroes who were native here. And so as natives here, they knew how to eat, right? And they taught each other how to eat. And so they ate better than the slave masters. You could have somebody who worked for 3 different generations of slave masters, right? From their youth to old age, sometimes 4 or 5, because the people that they worked for didn't even know how to eat. George Washington, when you talk about the dentures and stuff and how he had to take the teeth out of other people's mouths and all that stuff, or other person's mouths, George Washington, he lost his teeth by the time he was 30. You know why? Because he wouldn't eat real food. He literally had a diet of candy. So his teeth fell out. I'm not saying he never ate anything besides candy at all, but pretty much if you look at what he ate, we have a lot of stuff listed, even what he ate. We know that he pretty much just ate candy. And so if you're just going to only eat candy, then that makes sense that by the time you hit 30, you have no more teeth. And also that you would make certain decisions that you made because your brain doesn't work correctly. So, like, and that you would have certain issues that you couldn't fight, including even when the syphilis hit you the way that it did, at the level that it did, because your body can't protect itself, even though syphilis is something that is really hard to protect yourself from, but still your body can't protect itself. So, these are things that are there. This is systemic stuff. And we look up to these people. We look up to these things, whether we like to admit it or not, right? We look up to certain things, even our HBCUs. All of these HBCUs, they were not started by us. That's like part of the biggest lie. That's one of the biggest lies I feel. Like all these people screaming HBCU, you know, and I want my child to go to HBCU. You know why? Because some white person told you that you should think that if your child goes to a school that's supposed to be for black people, it's better than going to a school with white people. The problem is that the black school is teaching the same thing that the white school is, and that it wasn't made by black people, it was made by white people. That means that the families that are getting all this money, that you think the families that own these universities, and you swear that means it's coming back to your pockets. If Donald Trump gave billions, even though he didn't, not the way y'all think he did, but nevertheless, y'all say Donald Trump gave these billions to make sure that the HBCUs were taken care of, and then Joe came in behind him and gave way more and stuff, supposedly, right? Problem with that is, though, is that if the people who start the school and still make the money off the school, because the school is privately owned still, so, right, it's not a public school, it's a private school. If it's a private school, it's owned by the same family that created it in the first place. And if you go to these schools and realize that these are not black families, but these are white families that own it, and you're one of the people on their modest plantation getting this great or education, sending your child there because they're going to get the blackest of the blackest education, you're not even sowing into your own people, even if that's what your thought process is. But somebody told you it's propaganda. And that's evil, isn't it? Isn't it evil to make people think that if you go to a school that was created by black people for black people, not realizing you went to a school created by white people to have black people work for them? Like, isn't that evil if that's the standard that you're under? And how you doing, Sister Nadine? Right? Isn't that evil? It'd be evil if it was vice versa. It's a lie, ultimately. Right? And I'm not even saying don't get an education once again. I'm just making it a point to tell you it's not all the stuff that they're trying to tell you, and they're telling you is automatically this, and they're telling you this is what it is, and it's righteousness, and this was made for your people by your people. It's basically FUBU, a college version of FUBU, right? It's for us, by us. Yeah, I'm just trying to tell you it's not what you think it is. That's it. That's it, right? And by the way, if you go to any college, just about any college, just about any university, it's the same, right? It's the same, especially if it's accredited, and just about almost all of the big ones that you want, they're accredited, right? So you got to learn even in that to compartmentalize, right? I've gone to college myself. I have to compartmentalize, right? We have SOC University. There's stuff that we teach in there that we tell you straight up, yes, we're going to teach you this, but I need you to know we're teaching you certain terms or certain things because the system says this and that or whatever. And the reality is that you need to realize that what we're about to teach you in this, yes, this is what the system says. I have to tell you this because it would be unfair of me to not educate you on because this is the way the world works. And even though you're not of the world, you will go into the world. So just learn this and learn this and learn this. But the reality is that some of this stuff is not for us. A lot of it is not for us. Let's say the majority is not for us. And if it was for us, it would make sure that it benefited us. So we have to figure out what is for us, what can we compartmentalize, how can we go about it, and what can we do to make sure that we don't fall for this whole banality of evil. All right. That being said, we got to take our leave. It's about time. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you so very much. We'll get ready to do our shout out. We'll put up some of the stuff we put up. We told you that we put out earlier. If you're interested in supporting and stuff, we'll put that out there again. I'll try to do that also tomorrow, maybe on Sunday as well. Happy early Mother's Day to the mothers out there. We appreciate you. We thank you guys again for being on. We're going to get ready to do our shout out. If you want to come over from YouTube or Facebook, or if you're even coming over from the podcast and join us on TikTok, we appreciate you for doing so. And we look forward to having you guys on. If you've never done a shout out with us on TikTok before, we think you'll enjoy it. It's pretty simple. We'll explain how everything works in just a little bit. But we thank you guys for being on with us again. Well, actually, maybe we won't be able to do the shout out today. I don't know. I thought we'd be able to, but I guess not. Yeah, I don't know. Hold on 1 second, you guys. Well, anyways, while we're finishing up, a reminder, I think it's on May 21st will be the next, will be the makeup for for Passover. So we'll be looking at May 21st for that. We will have everything as the norm tomorrow, but there will be no SOC community meeting tomorrow. Not sure. We will be on the road. Not sure exactly where we'll be. So we won't be able to set up for much of anything, and we'll have a lot of stuff going on. So we'll just have our normal live session. We'll have the live session followed by our podcast, and for Shabbat service for the adults, and then Shabbat school for the children, and then after that, we should pretty much have the day off. We hope you enjoy your Shabbat. Early Shabbat Shalom to you in case I don't see you this evening. I'm sorry. We do have everything. I tried to start posting stuff. Signal was really, really bad and rough today. So I will try to make sure Patreon, all the stuff that I'm supposed to be having for you guys, including even the classes and everything, we'll try to make sure all that stuff is out there for you guys ASAP. But I'm going to go ahead and take my leave now. So thank you, everybody, for being on. We appreciate you. If you're going to be on TikTok with us, if you've never done a shout out with us before, just stick around for a little bit so we can just show you some things. And you'll find out for us, it's not just virtual, it's also reality. And we thank everybody for being on. So we appreciate you once again. We hope to see you guys soon. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life to be able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We thank everybody for being on once again, and we appreciate you. We honor you guys, and we hope that you all have a great day and have a great time. So thank you again. Appreciate you. Much love and respect to everybody in the diaspora. And we'll talk with you guys soon. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family, peace. And if you have any questions about anything, I see somebody talking about something that was confusing. And I know I'm kind of was all over the place a little bit today. So feel free to text me or whatever if you have a question. To those of you who are still with us, we're going to get ready to do our shout out. Shout out is pretty simple. If you've never done a shout out with us before,